Oh, the intro video didn't play. I'm gonna play it now. Here we go. Little Anchorman vibes to start the stream up. I thought that was good. I'm gonna still work on this. I thought I had it set as the intro there, but I was trying to get something that was like exactly this like action news team, and I couldn't quite get the AI stuff to work there. But nonetheless, it is Wednesday. We are here with Theme Parkin'. We are gonna hit some topics tonight. And before we do that, I want to introduce everybody in the panel here. We have Mr. Orange Grove 55. What is up, Mr. Orange Grove 55? How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. It is awesome joining you fellas today. We have a lot to talk about. We got soaring over America. We got Captain Cacao? We got all kinds of stuff.
Cacao, yeah.
Captain Cacao. I got a lot of thoughts on him, actually. But anyway, I appreciate you, Jared and Vash. You can find me here on YouTube, Orange Grove 55. Also on Instagram, Orange Grove 55. And I do have a little special guest with me. He had a little time after his interview on Good Morning America. So, hey, everybody.
Hey,
I mean, I feel
the one and only.
I mean, he's everywhere else, right? He had to make it a theme park appearance. I mean, come on, he's on every talk show.
He is making the rounds out there. As much as apparently there was like a thing where he was trying to lemon or something, and I'm so jaded on Grogu at this point. I'm just like, I'm so tired of that green little thing, in my personal opinion. But I may be in the huge minority there. I don't know where it all stands there. But
well, I think it's kind of gotten to the point where it's like I think the kiddos love him, but I think everyone else is like kind of over it,
Yeah.
Well, if you're in the engineer position in Smuggler's Run, you're about to get a lot of him.
A lot of him, yeah.
A lot of him in your ear just eating stuff randomly in there. We also are joined
on that.
Yeah, we will talk about that. We're going to talk all through about we're going to hit some, like I said, Captain Cacao, because apparently that is a very popular thing, which could help that park way more than I thought it might in terms of relieving some of those wait times. And then we're going to talk about some of the new things at Disney. We got Soaring Across America. We got Muppets. We have the Mandalorian Grogu overlay. So there's a lot of stuff they're premiering. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the new Walt Disney World president as well, because that's an interesting pick, I will say, about that. But we're also joined by Mr. Vash Sky, who just had his 5K celebration on his channel. So congrats to Vash on that. That is a great milestone there. And if you guys haven't subscribed yet, go over to Vash Sky and subscribe over there. But how are you doing this evening, Vash?
I am doing very, very well. Thank you so much for having me on, Jared. This is absolutely amazing to be on Theme Parkin'. Is that right? Okay, I got the name wrong earlier, and that's just on me. But Jared, I want to go ahead and thank you and OG for coming on the 5K. I thought that was a really awesome way to support me, and I think the audience really got a kick out of it. So thank you for that as well. Man, there's so many stories here. It kind of boggles the mind on where to even begin with it. But I saw that Captain Cacao thing as well, Jared. I was stunned at the response. Absolutely stunned.
They said like I saw it in the evening that it was breaking, because there was a rumor it was going to premiere that night, and then it was like an hour and a half, 2 hour wait, and I was like, and then people were waiting it in that park, and I was like, well, what is going on with this thing? Like, that thing seems crazy. But and that actually may be one of the first stories we hit. But before we do that, did you guys see this new Lego set that is being released by Disney? It's for the low price of $400, but it is Main Street USA. It goes up on June 1st. I mean, for $400, I don't feel like that's a huge set, but I guess it's Main Street, and this is the reason for the price point. But it seems pretty steep to me.
Yeah, Lego is notoriously steep. Like,
yes,
their sets are usually really, really pricey. I gotta be honest, I don't love this one. Maybe it's just the picture. I'm not really sure, but I don't know.
I'm in the same boat. It's funny with Lego because they have like the Game Boy thing. That's only like $50. And I think that thing looks awesome. They got like a Sega Genesis one coming out, but then sometimes these like, especially Harry Potter or Star Wars or Disney related stuff, it'll just be like, $400 or $500. I think one of the Star Wars things is like $800 for that, which is insane. But
Rogue Attractions asking which main street looks like Disneyland's main street. I saw an image of this, and it was with like Chinese lettering on it. So I was like, oh, okay, are they doing Hong Kong's? And then they're gonna, bring it over here. Hong Kong's main street, very similar to Disneyland's. So that's kind of what I thought they were doing. At least the pictures that I've been seeing recently with English typography right there. So I think it's Disneyland, as in Disneyland USA's main street. Difficult to translate in Lego, right? Because the bigger your set, the more resolution you have and the more detail you can express. Well, obviously nobody wants to pay $1,500 for this. So how small can we actually get it and maintain that detail? OG, maybe that's what you're seeing here, in that the detail of Main Street isn't quite one-to-one illustrated as well as it could be for Main Street itself. Is that kind of what we're seeing?
I think so. That's great. That's a great observation, and I think you're spot on, Vash. I think that's what it is. Just it's not. And Lego, I mean, they make a lot of great stuff. A lot of sets are really beautiful, but this one, I don't know. It just doesn't translate for me. But
especially when you look at which I think is a very similar setup, would be like Diagon Alley, and I'll bring this up real quick. And that one, kind of more or less is like how I would imagine like a Main Street one would be. This one's also $450, but it's like, it seems like it's got a lot more stuff, and then you can even set it up to where there's one that looks like this, and there's another one that where it actually like narrows down into the way
street.
I don't know, for $400, I feel like I would want a little bit more than what that set has, but I don't know. I'm sure it'll probably still sell nonetheless.
Yeah, it'll sell. It's Lego and it's Disney. It'll sell. But I mean, there's a lot of great Lego sets out there. This wouldn't be on my top 5, that's for sure.
No, I have to agree. I actually have a Captain America's shield one sitting in the corner here that I still have not put together because I don't know where I'm going to put it, because I can't fit it back here, and I think it just goes on a wall, and I don't really know it. Putting Legos on a wall kind of makes me a little nervous, like it's just going to randomly fall, then I have to reassemble the whole thing. And I don't know if I want to do that, but I do enjoy Legos. We actually have quite a few Lego sets. Like I got the Iron Man, I've got the Bumblebee. The best one is Soundwave by far. The Transformer stuff they're doing is awesome. So I'd like to see more of that. But I'm curious about I'm imagining they'll have that at Disney Springs. I might go check it out in the Lego store, but we'll see about that. But let's get to our first story here, and then we'll say hey to the chat before we get in there, actually. We got Captain Cacao we're going to talk about, but do want to say hello, everybody. Here we have, we got TJ Magnafine. I probably got that wrong. I apologize. Giant Park.
TJ Magnafine.
Okay, got it right. Giant Padventures. We got Theme Park Wizard. What's up, Wizard? We got MagicalyMJ. What's up, MJ? Rudio1. We got Rogue Attraction, Storybook Sorceress, and let's see, the Thrillabee. That's a cool
Thrillabee. Yeah, Thrillabee.
I like that name. We got Scooter Pops. I like that. We got a lot of people in here, so I appreciate you guys being here.
I actually, on my channel, I've done a few bar chats with Thrillabee, and I want to do like an intro for him, but like, you guys remember the old Wu-Tang Triumph music video with the killer bees going down New York and stuff?
I do remember that.
I want to do like something like that, dude, where it's just like a bunch of like killer bees, and then it like spells out Thrillabee. I don't know. We'll see. I'll cook something up, Thrillabee. We'll get it. We'll get it.
By the way, I figured out my neighbor is actually probably pretty cool, because I happened to see in their garage the other day, they had a flag up that said Wu-Tang Forever. And I was like, I bet they're kind of cool. Like I've never met him before, but I was like, that the thing alone, I was like, okay.
Well, I can get behind this. Well, and Method Man looks great, man. This guy is working out. He looks like he's like in his 30s. It's crazy.
Oh, does he? I haven't seen anything from him or like Redman in a long time, but I used to like ODB. He was always kind of off the wall. I used to be, I know OG and I've talked about it. I used to be a huge hip hop head. Like in high school, I used to buy mixtapes. I probably, like you talk about the Drake and Kendrick stuff. I couldn't tell you anything. All that stuff so foreign to me now. I'm just like, I have no idea. But the last thing, I don't know. But I know it's Wu-Tang's still out there in some way, I suppose.
It's funny. Our friend Rudio in the chat, he's actually a big Drake guy, and I'm more of a Kendrick guy. So we always discuss this stuff, especially right now because it's Iceman season, right, Rudio?
Yeah, Drake's had some songs I like, but I've always found Drake to be kind of corny. Just, I don't know. From the outside looking in, I can't say I've followed either one of them much, but I don't know. But that's also me at 40 years old, is being like, I don't
know. He's youngins today.
Yeah. Probably not my wheelhouse anymore. I like, even when I work out, I listen to either like 80s music or like podcasts. That's kind of it. Like, it's a very boring thing that I listen to for the most part. But all right, let's get into our first story here, which we have. Captain Cacao meet and greet has popped up. It's not coming. It has popped up at Epic Universe. And if you're not aware of who Captain Cacao is, it's probably not to be unexpected from the general population. It's a character that basically is introduced as the lore of Celestial Park. He's in the candy shop in there. And there was supposed to be a lot more, I guess you could say, lore and characters and storytellers in Celestial Park that have not materialized as of yet until now with this meet and greet. And I'm going to find a little video of this, but when he premiered, it was kind of incredible, the wait times and the demand for this character that really caught me off guard. They said it was an hour and a half wait at one point. They didn't even know if they were able to get everybody to meet him. And so if you do have meet and greets coming into Epic Universe that have this type of demand, I think it actually is going to help impact the potential wait times around the park. But what say you guys about this in terms of Captain Cacao and what they may be doing with Celestial Park over at Epic Universe?
I have, and this opinion might be different than you fellas, but I have major doubts about this. Now, he just premiered, right? This is like a new thing. Okay. So I don't know. Let's see how it legs out, right? Because opening day for everything, all the vloggers, there's all that curiosity stuff with the influencers and all that stuff. Let's see how it legs out. I just get Duffy vibes. And I think maybe in Japan, this would go over like crazy. I don't know, because American audiences, they typically need characters to be tied to something, a show, a movie, or something. I just don't know if this is going to leg out. We'll see. We will see. But I'm very, very skeptical. I'm getting Duffy vibes, in my opinion. But what say you?
I mean, look, I was stunned, and Jared, you're the same idea I had. you're bringing up the video right now.
Yeah,
I was stunned that, because I'm kind of like you, OG. It's like, oh, okay, you got the influencers, you got the people, that are really excited to meet him. All right, maybe this might not leg out, but you got to remember, Epic's not open for everybody. You had to have a ticket to get in there.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my goodness, like on the possibility that Captain Cacao could even make his appearance here, we had a huge crowd form, and so I don't know quite know how organic it is, but I had to assume that a lot of these are park guests and not just influencers. I was shocked. I was completely surprised that this character was as big as this is. Maybe it took Universal by surprise as well, perhaps a little bit. Now, the reason why they brought him out is because, well, obviously he moved a lot of merch. Captain Cacao, I believe the plush has been available since day one in Epic Universe, if I'm not mistaken, and it did sell very, very well. It's just didn't quite know that a created character like this was going to generate so much enthusiasm. At least on day one, we'll see how it looks out.
Yeah, well, and the merch is a good sign, though. To be fair, I mean, that merch. I mean, if they're moving a lot of merch and they have been consistently with this character, it might buck the trend. I mean, yeah, I mean, that really surprises me, because usually when there's characters that don't really have a tie into something, it's hit or miss. But I mean, hey, people love them. They're buying the merch. We'll see. This might be the what do you call it? Like a
figment of Epic Universe, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Like a figment. Exactly, Jared.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I think the plush, if I remember right, during previews or opening, did sell out. Like, they sold out of the plushies at one point. And there was a lot of hype before Epic opened. Again, they were supposed to have like storytellers. There's going to be this whole thing about who Captain Cacao is. So I was surprised by the crowds, simply because I really was curious how many people knew about Captain Cacao. Like, I don't think from the general audience, like if you were to poll most people maybe going to Epic Universe in a day, if they knew who he was, I would have expected most people, or like half of them, to have no clue. But would they and I don't know, maybe that was just, you know, how sometimes, I don't know if you guys been in the parks and all of a sudden like something pops up and all of a sudden you just kind of get, you know, people kind of get in a mob mode and they're just like, oh, there's a meet and greet. Everyone's getting in line. Let's go do it. It could have been some of that, but I think that's what was surprising to me. But at the 1 year mark, which we talked about, there's probably going to be a lot of changes coming to Epic Universe because of, you know, we talk about the open celestial park concept and some other things they may be doing. If they can throw in meet and greets that have this type of demand, I mean, if I'm Universal, I am throwing up like 5 of these things in Celestial Park. I'm bringing in storytellers. I'm bringing in entertainment, because if it has this much demand, I mean, it's going to help the rest of the park. And really, this could be, if it does continue with this type of demand for this meet and greet, it could be a blessing in this. Well, I wouldn't say in disguise. It could be a great thing for them, because they're like, oh, you know, hey, we can get some relief off these wait times, maybe even get more people in this park because of it. And I think that could be one of the ingredients of, if you're talking about not only the expansions that are going to come to Epic Universe, but I suppose if you're against an open Celestial Park concept, if this is something that ends up having a lot of demand, maybe they don't go the Celestial Park open concept.
You know, that's a great point, Jared. I was actually going to say that as well. You could do a lot with this, because you can even, because one of the big arguments for the open hub, right, is that these restaurants are not filling up. So if you can do character dining and things like that to kind of funnel in more traffic, maybe, I think Wizard, I think, mentioned it last week or something in one of our live shows, where after 6 p.m. no one's really going to these restaurants, right? Yep. Maybe you do like an evening dinner meet and greet, dining meet and greet thing, right? And I don't know. I mean, that you're spot on, Jared. I think that could really change the game for this park. And this is a great sort of like filler thing while they build this park out, right? Because it needs more attractions, it needs more rides, but you can't do that overnight. What do? Well, you can do stuff like this.
Well, entertainment is a great way to augment the attractions in your park. I mean, we know it better than anybody, because we experienced that at Disneyland. Disneyland, for a long time there, is a little short on new attractions. So what you have entertainment take its place. And, I mean, in this way, Epic Universe, like we always say, it needs more rides. Well, if you can have, like Jared mentioned, maybe 5 of these things, absorbing those guests, well, it takes so much stress off of those that existing lineup that they have, and allows for maybe expansions to be built without much hassle. So I'm hopeful that people are really excited about this stuff, because we need to spread out some crowds a little bit. And on the back end, OG, if we can benefit the revenue streams like restaurants and so forth, and maybe move some more merch from Captain Cacao appearances, well, obviously Comcast is going to be excited about that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. 100%. And Storybook Sorceress even says, and they are already talking about bringing in the rest of the characters related to the sweet shop. And then Theme Park Wizard said Major Lolly meet and greet is coming based on trademarks. I mean, if this stuff works, I mean, it's got to be like, if you're Universal, I mean, this would be like your fist pumping in the boardroom, like, oh man, we can do something, because this is probably an answer to a lot of their issues. And it makes you wonder, and maybe it's park operations as to why they hadn't done it yet. But my first thought was like, why was this not like a day one thing? Why did you not have, like, you know, maybe it could have been issues with getting the costumes, could have been issues that, you know, unforeseen things. But to me, I'm like, I would have tried this from the get-go the minute you started seeing issues where you're like, oh, we can't get more people in this park because of the wait times here. Throw in some meet and greets. And I guess to Universal, like, they're not quite where Disney is with meet and greets. So maybe that's not necessarily like their knee-jerk reaction, like how Disney will throw a meet and greet into everything. Maybe Universal's not quite there with their thinking it, but maybe this gets them into that mode, because if you can do the storytellers in here, you can get these characters popular. I mean, these meet and greets, if you had a slew of them inside Celestial Park, I mean, even if they had 30-minute wait times for, you know, various ones in here, it's gonna help everything else in this park.
Well, so, I mean, we just had Universal Fan Fest out here in California, Universal Hollywood, which was a fantastic event. I can't wait for next year. Really cool event. But we had like like 4 or 5 different colored Yoshis at that event. I mean, we have the Yoshis. Why don't you maybe put some of those Yoshis over there in Epic Universe? I mean, you know, a lot. They have a whole. I mean, the library they can mine from Nintendo alone. The meet and greet potential with Nintendo is insane. Now, obviously, you're going to want to save your star player Pikachu for another time, but you can do other stuff in the meantime. I mean, you could have a Star Fox. You can do the a Star Fox. You can do the Yoshis. I mean, there's a lot you can do in the meantime. Just Nintendo alone has so much potential.
Still waiting for a Bowser meet and greet. I need that.
Bowser would be great. Or my daughter would love. Is it Rosalita? I think is one of the princesses. Like and there was rumors before Epic was open. I want to say like a year before, where there was a lot of rumblings about Universal was going to kind of set up their own princess universe with the Nintendo princesses, with Peach and Rosalina and Daisy and all of them. I still think that would be something insanely popular. I guess the big caveat there is like, I don't know if you could do that as much in Super Nintendo World because it's just swamped all the time. That's true. Maybe Celestial Park becomes an area where you throw in some of these other meet and greets. Now, I don't know. Right. Maybe with Nintendo, you can't do it outside of Super Nintendo World or something like that. But I think meet and greets could be a way forward for at least in the short term for this park.
Yeah, I think the one thing that was missing from Super Nintendo World was a place to do formal meet and greets. Now, obviously, we don't. I prefer always to have wandering characters in these lands and so forth, but Disney's way of doing it, where you have dedicated spaces, might be the best avenue to go, or might have been for a space so constrained as Nintendo was, at least on opening day. Perhaps they implement those in various places. I'm not sure, but I mean, look at the response here. Jared, it was like what, an hour and a half, 2.5 hours to meet Captain Cacao. That is crazy in a park that, I mean, let's be honest here, you have to pay per day in order to be in there.
Yeah, I was trying to find the post that they had announced when here it is. News had gotten out that Captain Cacao may be meeting in Celestial Park tonight. This line is easily like 1.5 to 2.5 hours long.
It's insane.
This is from Ethan, that Disney boy. I mean, there we popped up there. Yeah, I mean, and they even made another announcement, I think, where they said that they even told everybody they may not be able to, not everybody may be able to meet him that evening. So when I saw that, I can't say I expected that at all. But I think there's going to be some other announcements as well regarding Epic Universe coming up on the 1 year mark. So maybe this park's going to get some relief that maybe a lot of people didn't anticipate it getting in the short term. In terms of some of these wait times and some of the stuff they're going to do here, because they're obviously going to do a fireworks show that is going to bring in crowds, and you've alluded to that, Vash, about keeping people in that park longer. That could also help with some of these park the restaurant reservations. True. So they have some, as you always say, they have levers they can pull maybe before they do this or approach this open Celestial Park concept. Because I will say the videos I've had, we've talked about this. Most of the feedback I've seen is people being like, this is not a good, like, they don't like the idea of it. I get from the guest standpoint. So if that's something that you're like, well, we don't want to make people mad. If this falls into your lap and you can do stuff like this, that could be a way that they do it. Maybe they still do the open Celestial Park. Maybe it's only for APs, but I think there may be a lot of changes. And Theme Park Wizard said big announcement for Epic on Friday. So, which is going to be the 1 year mark of Epic Universe. So I kind of, without knowing much, always assume they're going to have some sort of announcement about something at the 1 year mark. But
one also note that Captain Cacao meeting people at night, very interesting, might be a reflection of maybe the lack of shade in this area right here.
Well, that's a good point.
It's a little something. Now, not to say that he's not available at the day at all, but because I think Blog Mickey had a different photo there, but it's interesting to note.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Vash had some feedback there. Yeah,
sorry about that, guys. I apologize.
Oh, you're good. Oh, all good. What you want to finish your point?
No. I think that I think that was my point right there.
Okay.
Very interesting how they broke it at night, and obviously it's a little bit easier to corral some people where you don't have to worry about some shade issues. But that whole reputation that this park got early on, where there's no shade and stuff like that, not beating those allegations, unfortunately.
No, they're
Yeah.
not. And Vash has an excellent observation because number one, you're probably right about that. The shade for sure. And also in the evening, keeping people there later.
100%.
Yeah.
The shade is real, by the way. I think it will have more shade. They put a lot of trees into this park, but they're young trees, so they're going to take time to really build up. But man, when you were in there and we were there a couple weeks ago and it was like 96 degrees that day. There is no relief when you're in Celestial Park. So yeah, it's a very good observation because if you throw up a meet and greet midday in Celestial Park, I don't know where you're going to put that thing. So not only are the guests going to be just sweating like crazy, the people in the suits would be miserable in that situation. So I don't know if they can maybe build now. Maybe they've got that whole thing they're building off Celestial Park that they're in the process, that entertainment area. Maybe the idea is to throw meet greets in there. I guess it's always possible. Or you could make it work for that. So there could be an area they could do this. But in the short term, that's a real thing that maybe during the day you don't see these because of that.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. We want to keep Captain Cacao, not melted cacao. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
No question
Exactly.
about that.
Captain Cacao
and maybe they were waiting.
People.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe they were waiting for the merchandise sales and seeing, hey, if it slows up, maybe we don't do this. Perhaps that's why it took a little while. But I mean, regardless, this has been the perfect storm for Epic Universe at a time where they need all the attractions they could possibly get for this specific park right here. So I agree with you, Jared. Bust out like 5 of these. Let's go.
Yeah,
OG, if we can possibly, keep people in that park for longer, perhaps we can avoid the open concept Celestial Park altogether. We'll see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I will say this: I'm a tree nerd. I when it comes to theme parks, I love the trees and all that. And out here in Cali, the DCA, right? DCA Grizzly Peak was kind of similar to that of Epic Universe. They put a bunch of baby trees in there, and I mean that filled in beautifully, right, Vash? I mean, it's gorgeous in there now. So
it's one of the best parts of DCA, even with Cars Land and everything else. So I can't say more than that. It's absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately, those old growth trees, well, they do have a lifespan themselves. We've seen some a tree actually fall over at Plaza Inn over there at Disneyland. They're kind of dealing with that right now. So probably young trees is probably the best way to go long term for your park. It just takes a while to get to usability.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yep, I agree there. So we'll keep an eye on that one and see what developments are there, but could be a pretty big thing for that park potentially going forward. All right, let's get into, and by the way, I do agree with who said it here? Dan's Life at the Kingdom. Epic needs to be open until midnight. I completely agree. And the rumor, by the way, I will say, it's been talked about that fireworks show. It's been under development for a while, and they had an article, I believe it was in the Orlando Weekly. It was one of the Orlando travel sites, and they'd interviewed some of the people working on the fireworks show, and they had said in that article, I think this was like a year ago, that whenever there is a fireworks show premiering, it would coincide with later park hours. So we don't know if that's true. I hope that's true, because this park definitely deserves to be open much later.
It might have been a chicken and the egg thing, to your point, Jared. That makes a lot of sense, because I know they had some team member issues getting enough team members to facilitate all day operations, and so maybe that's why they held off on the fireworks. Now that team member issue might not be 100% resolved, but more resolved than it was before. Perhaps now it's like, okay, let's go ahead and implement the fireworks show, which I think we know is coming there, at least by all accounts. Which, again, your nighttime program, that's what facilitates longer hours. That's what facilitates people staying there longer. I think it's brutally important for this park, especially.
Yeah, well said. And I would much rather them pull those levers, the fireworks show, the meet and greets. Do whatever you can, Universal. The open hub thing, let's wait on that. Let's do other stuff first, in my opinion. But we'll see.
Completely agree. Although I feel like it may not be a complete open concept. I really get I wonder if they would go like maybe APs, but still, even if you open up to APs, that's a ton more people coming in there that undoubtedly are still going to impact the guest experience. So I think if that's in if you're talking about, like, if you're dealing with something where it's like you got multiple options, I would leave that one as break glass in case of emergency type of situation you use at that point, not the first thing you do. But it's going to have pros and cons unless they set up a system where it's like people that pay to be in the park get some sort of priority with this stuff. Maybe they can work some system like that out. I think that's a reasonable thing you could do, but it's still going to be a lot more people in that area if they did that regardless. But we'll see. Like I said, I think I'm going to have a Wizard on a live stream here soon. Maybe if they're going to have a bunch of announcements on Friday, I think we're looking at maybe Saturday, go through all this stuff and see what they announce, because there's a lot of stuff I think that they are going to announce on Friday. So we'll see what they end up doing there. But let's also move over to Walt Disney World, as they are having a few of their refurbs come online, or kind of online. Now, this one isn't completely online. You can walk through it, but the Walt Disney Studios lot land is now open. The attraction itself is not open, but you can walk through this area that's supposed to look very much like Burbank, that they recently redid. You got Pluto's Corner there. I will say, I think this area looks really cool, and I think it actually is something that I think fits this park in terms of its original concept for a park that kind of has some identity issues, I would say. And we'll go into some of the ones. But what do you guys think about this idea here? Like, do you think this fits Hollywood Studios and it'd be a good thing for it? And kind of the guest feedback there.
Yeah, I think it's an absolute brilliant overlay or retheme. I don't know what you would even call this, but it's beautiful, and it probably didn't cost them that much to do this, and the vibe is like tenfold better. Like, you can just tell. I mean, it looks like a whole new area. Like, I mean, they really, really, really did a great job with this, and we'll talk about it too, I'm sure, with the Muppet roller coaster stuff. Yep. I just think that these two things that came online, I think these things are really, really solid. And actually, I was saying it on Vash's channel earlier today. This gives me hope. This gives me some hope for some of these future projects, like, Piston Peak or the Villains Land, or even the stuff we're getting out here in California, like the Cocoa Boat Ride. I mean, if this is what the kind of quality we're going to see coming out of Imagineering and Disney going forward, this was a very modest retheme, and it looks absolutely beautiful. I love this. I love the Disney characters, the little figurines all around this area, and it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And actually, I've been to the Burbank studio many times, and they really kind of nailed it. It looks just like it. So love it.
It does look a lot like it, and I've unfortunately never walked onto the Burbank lot before, but I have filmed around it, and it looks very, very similar. I think they really did nail that vibe. It is. I find it interesting how they would theme an area to a place that maybe most guests have never seen, which is interesting, because I saw people like arguing online, for example. If you go back just one photo there, you can see the trash cans in the bottom right of the frame. People were saying, "Oh, the trash can design's a little bit plain." It's like, well, those are the trash cans, and that's how they look on the Burbank lot. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, people had some disagreements with some of the aesthetic choices, but it's like, well, if you're dedicating this to that area, you kind of have to be consistent with that. Fans of the Kingdom asking if the grass is real or artificial. I believe it's artificial. This goes along with Disney's idea of more eco-friendly spaces and so forth. So I think they're going with artificial grass right there. The animation building looks very much like the animation building over there on the Burbank lot, which was surprising because it's a pre-existing structure right here. And if you looked at previous pictures of this area, it was dim, it was dark, it was, I mean, for as much grief as I give Disney over the gray thing for Muppets, this area was very gray, and it was like, oh, this is super unpleasant to be in anyway. This is a total uplift. There's no question. I do have some quibbles, like the sign out in front, right? We all know, OG, you've been there. The kind of brick sign, the Walt Disney Studios sign right there. They didn't use brick in this case. I think it's like a carved cement or something like that. It doesn't quite look, 100% to me. I got small quibbles there. But alas, I think they did a pretty good job, a great job in a very short time span in order to redo this area. Sad that we lost the arch. You can kind of see why they did that.
Yeah, well, and I think you're taking apart, especially ever since Galaxy's Edge, like at least over in Disney World, like Launch Bay was just an afterthought. Like barely anybody went in there. So you kind of took an area of the park that really had nothing much going for it outside of some kids stuff. And,
Mhm.
you know, again, this park, what is Hollywood Studios, but at least in its original concept was kind of behind the scenes, how this stuff is made. It does fit into that. Now I'm very curious that whole art of, you know, you're going to go in there and do the animation stuff and drawing, which I love that. But the whole idea they originally had was you're going to have this Olaf animatronic, and then it's going to be recorded stuff. I don't like
recorded stuff.
that. That is one thing when I heard that, I was like, that's the cool thing about having an actual animator showing you these things. I suppose that's something they could tweak, because they did get a lot of I don't know, I would say, I don't think it was a lot of positive feedback on that when they announced it. So we don't know if that's changed or not. Probably not, but we'll see how that one is. But just in terms of the look of this, it's already an upgrade in terms of what was back there, you know, at least in my opinion. And my kids are a little old for some of the stuff, for the kiddie stuff in here, but you know, I think the dance party stuff, that or the Disney Junior stuff, kids will love it. And it'll be a functional space. And I agree with you, OG. It's like, I think this, along with Muppets, was kind of I don't think they necessarily planned to do these things years in advance. I kind of feel like this was something that they thought of last year. They're like, oh, shows and parades are not going to move the needle on this stuff. We need actual attractions. And it was like, well, why don't we revamp this area? And so it's promising that even though I think this was a short-term little turnaround thing, it does look pretty solid with the details here. So, you know, hopefully that's encouraging for the things that they're going to do going forward with all these lanes they're building, because there's a ton of pressure on especially the Cars area of Magic Kingdom. But I think like Monstropolis and everything they're doing at Animal Kingdom, before you even talk about Villains Land. So they got a lot of stuff riding on these things. So if they can nail these small little projects, that is a good sign. But there's still the questions about the big attractions. What are they going to be like? Or, you know, how are they going to pull those things off?
Well, you know, and here's the thing too, out here for DCA, I wouldn't even mind. I posted this on Twitter today, but I wouldn't even mind because some of Hollywood Land is going to go away for Pandora, but the main strip, the Hollywood Boulevard and the Hyperion, I believe, is staying. I wouldn't mind if that whole Hollywood Boulevard area got this motif. I mean, you can see that big building in the background. I mean, you can paint the Hyperion like that, put some classic Disney, right, the posters on there and stuff, and the Hyperion would look pretty sharp like that. I mean, I wouldn't mind this at all if they were to do this over here in DCA, just for that one street, and then you can have all the animation stuff. You already have the animation building, you can keep that, right? I mean, obviously you would change the outside, but Hyperion could have stage shows based on all the animated movies, things like that. I mean, I think it would be a great little spot and fix the Hollywood problem over there. So, but I love this. I think it really, they did a bang up job. I mean, way better. And also, talking about trees, this softens this area like you couldn't believe. It was like, it was like you were saying, Vash, with all the grain, it looked like a prison. It was like, it was pretty depressing.
I was surprised. I was like, oh man, I knew we were going for the first order look, but holy cow, you know. But you're right, the greenery, the trees, right? The it's more park-like, and well, I guess that's consistent with not only theme parks themselves, but also too what Walt originally envisioned the Burbank lot to actually have. So, you know, it translates extremely well. You also had the half and half treatment on some of those buildings right there, which is very consistent with the Burbank lot. Just look, all these little details right here. Oh, gee, not a bad idea to bring the Burbank lot to DCA. Honestly, you know, you'd have a better chance of people actually having seen the Burbank lot going to DCA and stuff like that, and maybe it would be maybe better appreciated with that lot than necessarily Florida. Even though bringing a little bit of the beautiful Burbank lot to Florida, I think, was a good idea in the long term. It's very interesting to see how these projects have developed right here. Honestly, I think this is a win. Hey, as much as I love the arch, as much as I love some of the original details, it was a little disjointed in this area. It looks like they've really cleaned this up, which is nice to see.
Yeah, the arch kind of made no sense once they got rid of the studio stuff. It kind of was a little bit weird, you know?
Well, it made it weird when the park was busy, because you had people trying to fit into that, and then you had this other way. So I think this will open it up a bit more to at least feel more open, to be able to like move through there more freely. So I think, you know, I agree. I think probably after the studio stuff, it did make a ton of sense here. But they still haven't said when the animation or the draw with an animator is going to open. Sometime this summer. But when that does open, we'll talk about that. But they also had yet another
real quick. I just want to say one thing about this as well that I kind of noticed, and I'm kind of curious what you guys think about this. You guys saw the short Once Upon a Studio, right?
Yes.
From a few years ago. Okay, I thought that short was amazing, but it's like hybrid, like live action with animation, and all the characters kind of going through the animation studio and all that. Kind of classic Disney. I remember Walt was in his office with Tinkerbell and Donald Duck all the time, right? I love that. But this area reminds me of that short because they integrated the characters. Like you have little Abu in like the signage for the store. He's popping out the O, and you got the cat from Cinderella, chilling on the little brickwork. Like it felt like that integration of like the characters at the studio. It's beautiful. It's basically Once Upon a Studio in the park, So
apparently that was the main inspiration for a lot of what we see there in Disney's Hollywood Studios. So to your point, OG, if that was what you got from it, that was the intention, which is great to see that it was so well executed that even if you didn't have that continuity told to you, you could still actually formulate that in your brain if you had seen that short right there. And I guess there's going to be some references to not just Once Upon a Studio, but also to a bunch of animation stuff in Disney Hollywood Studios history. So that's pretty cool. Pretty good win, I got to be honest. A little quibbles, but pretty big win.
Well, and it's like it's an easy win. Like the short does what, and then you're like, well, okay, let's just, and like it didn't take them that long. I think the construction of this started early this year, so it's like it's an easy win you throw in here. If anything, it's just only going to help you. So I think in the grand scheme of things, it's one that kind of like Epic Universe, where if a meet and greet falls in your lap, it helps out things. This one may be the same thing where it's just like, oh, well, okay, let's just do this here. It makes some sense. It's an underutilized area of the park. All of a sudden it becomes something that's going to eat up some crowds, at least for a little bit here. I think that's a pretty easy thing.
It's also a catch-all for pretty much every Disney animated film going forward. So now you can do the meet and greets. Any animated film that drops, you can put them right there.
Yep. That's a very good point. James All Day TV says, now what the magic of Disney animation is back. When is the great movie ride next? I don't imagine that. Yeah. It would be really interesting if Disney or other theme parks started, like we talked about before, OG, if Universal brought back Back to the Future. Like seeing old attractions make a comeback would be really interesting. I don't think Disney is in the mindset to do that, but it would be. I wouldn't be against it. I don't think they would take out Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway by any means, but
no. From what I understand, that version of Mickey moves a ton of merch. I'm
sure
it's a big deal. So
I've always felt like it looks kind of like Ren and Stimpy, and I never was a big fan of Ren and Stimpy. Like that animation style just looks it's so odd compared to the traditional Mickey animation, at least, but they're okay though. My kids used to watch them a little bit.
Well, it's weird. The animation is weird. It kind of goes back and forth. Like sometimes it looks like pretty like classic, but then it gets into this weird stuff, like you were saying, Jared, like this Ren and Stimpy where they'll zoom in on the faces and like focus on like a pimple or something weird.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like this grotesque kind of anime. It's like weird. So it kind of goes back and forth. I've never been a huge fan of that style, but I mean, I guess the kiddos love it because
it's a little edgy. They did stop the production of the shorts though, so a lot of people are like, okay, well, how long is this going to last? I mean, literally, it was like right after I think Disneyland's open, they stopped them, and it was like, oh, okay.
Oh, they did.
So
yeah, that's
is this
true.
the future? Yeah, it's just a little weird. OG, you remember the black box concept attraction where you literally have, right? I always thought if you pursued that could make a great foundation for restoring old attractions along with bringing in new ones, right? You just you can restore, I don't know, Great Movie Ride, Adventure Through Inner Space. If you have a black box attraction, which can be easily themed, so kind of think Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, but a what is it? A cleaner template which to work on. You can do a lot of stuff like that. So old attraction share, to your point, making a comeback, I think it could be a profitable sector if pursued correctly.
Well, and the Great Movie Ride would actually be if they were to ever kind of reboot that and rebuild it. the black box would be perfect because now you can swap out
Yep.
a new movie. You can do the new Fox movie, the new Pixar movie, the new Disney movie. I mean, you can have the scenes changing with whatever's out at the moment. You can have a Mando and Grogu scene right now. I mean, that would be absolutely genius.
Well,
I love that
as much
idea.
as Disney leans into nostalgia already, tapping into old rides that people now have nostalgia for would just be yet another thing that they get, like Horizons or things like that. People talk about like, Mission Space is not the ride Horizons was. Granted, I think the reason they got rid of Horizons is because the building was sinking, which is probably a little bit of an issue in Florida, especially. But I think stuff like that is a concept I think that could work, and it was kind of reminiscent of what what was the thing they're going to do in Epcot? Was it Disney Play, the Play Pavilion, where they were going to it was going to interchange with different things. Like they've definitely gotten close a few times, and I think eventually one of them will do it, whether it's Disney or Universal. Somebody will do an old attraction in a new way. I don't know when, but I think they will do it.
To the Future.
I know. Gosh,
it's so good.
I am on that bandwagon so hard. Like The Simpsons, it's just sitting there for you. Like, I actually think within Universal fan base, if you brought Back to the Future back into the parks, I think that thing would. I think it would be like Hagrid's. I really do. I think there's so much demand for it, and I think FanFest even showed that last year with Back to the Future. That was the headlining part of that. Although I don't know how the merch sales went, which will probably tell them a lot of where the merch sales were off of that, of what they felt. But
well, I don't know. I could be wrong on this. I'm not privy to the inside numbers, but I have a feeling Back to the Future is more relevant right now than Fast and Furious. And they built the Fast and Furious coaster, so maybe we have a chance here. You never know.
Hey, the family's coming back in a series. Come on now.
5 series or something. Not one. We're gonna do 5. We're gonna saturate the market. Well, and I think if you put I don't see much Fast and Furious merchandise in any of the shops at Universal, which probably tells you right there kind of where the demand is. You see a ton of Back to the Future and Jaws and these retro properties. So probably is a pretty good way to show you right there. And I do agree with I need to find it. Rogue Attraction said Goofy looks like a meth head in those Mickey shorts.
Does.
He kind of does. As somebody from Missouri who has dealt with a few, he definitely gives off some little meth head vibes here and there, I will say. A little bit there.
Absolutely.
The show Ozark, by the way, is based on a town that was like 15 minutes from where I lived. And they got some elements right, but it's a lot cleaner and less rednecky in the show than it really is. But I would always watch that show and just be like, that's not quite how it is there. But I don't know.
Well, dude, that was a great show, actually. I loved that show.
I watched a few episodes of it. I just couldn't get past when they would show the Ozarks, and I'm like, that's not the Ozarks. But I'm somebody who lived there, so it's like, there's not going to be that many people like that. But yeah, we'll see. But let's talk about the other attraction that, and we talked about this on Vash's live stream a little bit, is the Muppets and the, I guess, reimagining of Rock and Roller Coaster. And they've got some Easter eggs in here. And Vash, do you have that foot? I'll find the video of we can watch the intro thing if we want to.
I got it.
It looks, I'll be honest, the little pre-show looks pretty great from what I saw. And I think even my wife, who she was talking about this, right? She can't do roller coasters a ton anymore, but she's actually really excited to ride this because it does look like they nailed a lot of the Muppet vibe with this. And again, this is another one that was a pretty short turnaround. I don't think they planned to do this in the grand scheme of things. I think that they kind of, my guess is off the idea of what, when people reacted to the Muppets closing down the Muppet Courtyard, I think this was kind of like a consolation prize. I could be wrong, but they seem to pull it off pretty well, at least this part.
Well, let me ask you guys a question. I'm kind of curious what you guys think about this, right? Because we've seen 2 projects now, the high turnaround projects, right? We see Muppets and we saw the animation courtyard, okay? And they both turned out amazing. We also had another high turnaround overlay or retheme out here in California for Mission Breakout. They announced that thing in January at Comic-Con, and by May it was open. It was crazy. It was like a 6-month thing, right? And they crushed it with that. Is there something to be said, or maybe I'm reading too much into it, but is there something to be said about maybe Imagineering when they're kind of crunched for time, there's less like meddling or something. Like it seems like a lot of these high turnaround projects end up like kind of good, kind of better than the
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I actually had a similar thought. I was talking to my wife about this. I wonder if it removes the second guessing.
Yes.
Like you just kind of more like sometimes as an ADHD person, I will tell you, sometimes you cut things down to the all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to get this thing done. You just kind of go off of instinct a little bit more and you're not overthinking things too much.
Yeah.
And I do think sometimes as much as they announce things at D23, you get the reaction. I think sometimes they do get kind of caught where they're like, oh, maybe we should do this. And then you got 5 different ideas going around a boardroom and you don't know which one to do versus like, hey, we got 6 months. What are we doing? It's like, let's just do this. And you just make a decision and you just go that way. I do wonder if that is a legitimate thing that maybe, happens inside Imagineering.
Possibly. The only pushback I'll have against that is just that, look at Soarin' across America. I think that could have been a lot better, maybe with more time in order to film those scenes, and we didn't quite get that. At least with Muppets here, I do appreciate the quick turnaround time because Disney Hollywood Studios needs it. There's no question about that. But because of the quick turnaround time, well, the attraction itself on the interior uses a lot of the same props and setup as Aerosmith did. And I thought that was a little bit of a not as good as it could have been. Also, too, the trains and so forth being the same thing. Especially with those archaic over-the-shoulder restraints and with the head knocking there, I don't think it was executed to the degree that really would have transformed this attraction. 25 years after the original open, I think 1999, I believe that was. Wow, it's been that long.
I think it's somewhere around there.
So I think the quick turnaround stuff, if handled correctly, I think is pretty decent, and this is pretty decent. I just don't know if it's as good as it could have been. I'd say Soarin' falls into that category. Now, this pre-show right here, awesome, fantastic. There's no question about it. This is really, really, really good stuff. I just wish the attraction lived up to what was promised in the pre-show.
Well, that could be because I would love to know this, but like if they just decided they announced, obviously they have D23, they announce these stuff coming, then then the next following Monday, it's like, by the way, Rivers is going away and is the Muppet Courtyard, and they saw the reaction to that. So if you were working on this timeline, we were like, oh, okay, let's do this. Maybe, and I agree with you. Like, I'm not a coaster person, but like they didn't have the time necessarily, maybe, to go in and really change major elements. It was like, let's give the fan base something, which maybe they could approach it later on. But I think that's fair, undoubtedly. And we also have, by the way, a 5 here from Cliff Flicks. Thank you, Cliff.
Fantastic.
Good to see you in here.
Awesome.
Said, watch several videos of this. As much as I'm a recent critic of modern WDI, this actually does look impressive to me. Good job, Glendale. Keep it up. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important, and I think you guys would agree. I critique a lot of stuff that Disney does in the recent changes, but when they do something good, I think it's also important to be like, this is good. Like, do more of this type of stuff. Like, I think that's the ultimate goal of what you want is something like that. And I think if you're a Muppets fan, they'll be pretty happy with this in terms of the spirit of the ride.
100%.
So Marvin's a pretty big Muppets fan. He wasn't too hyped about all the references because he's like, we're never gonna get Muppet Vision 3D back because it uses so many propping and so forth. But the details, right? The fact that they were able to mocap and film a puppeteer doing Scooter and then basically translate that 1-to-1 with the animatronic, that's a pretty impressive thing because it does actually look like a puppeteer is working that. I remember, I think somebody said it's like, did they actually have the puppeteer doing that? Like, that's how good it was.
I think it was me because I was going to ask you when we were watching on your live stream. I was like, do they have a puppeteer there the whole time? Because I was like, that's surely they're not going to have a puppeteer the whole time there, but it does look really good.
Yeah,
but you gotta like give it up. Like, okay, that's the illusion being maintained there. Now, I was a little bit concerned when seeing this in isolation that they had the hand rods and so forth, right? Because like I think the way Jim Henson described translating his puppets to animatronics, it really excited him because it's like, it's like the evolution of that idea. It's like it's perfect technology to bring these characters really to life. When I saw those hand rods there and saw that they were doing the puppet thing again, I was like, that's very interesting. They kind of went back a little bit in terms of the thought process here. But with so many Muppets, through the looking glass right there being represented in that film, kind of makes sense that you'd have a visual consistency between all of the figures outside of the, penguins that are pretty, stiff,
right.
C'est la vie.
I love penguins. Got like and like I think now one thing I will say, the Kermit voice, the modern
Matt
voice,
Vogel.
is
Matt
so
Vogel.
bad. I don't understand why we like, even if anything, AI that voice. I feel like AI could do a better job than what. No offense to the guy, I don't know who the guy that does it, but I'm like, that needs to be a little bit better to me personally. But that's been a modern thing with Kermit for years.
Yeah.
Jim Henson picks Steve Whitmire to do the voice past him, and he did it for a while. Had a falling out with Disney, and they went with Matt Vogel, and it's just never been the same. And it's really bad. I'm sorry, it just is. It doesn't sound anything like Jim Henson's voice, who originally voiced Kermit right there. It's really a shame. So unfortunately, that's baked into the fabric right here. And possibly later on with AI, Jared, maybe we can actually switch this out. A little bit sad to see there. I will say this also has some variants to it. So the Gonzo you saw in that footage that right there, apparently that's one of, I think, 6 characters that could arrive on that screen. I think Sam Eagle is one of them. I think Shooter Chef is one of them. I saw a POV of that. So you actually have in this very short pre-show actually some variants every single time you see it, which is cool.
Yeah,
awesome. That's a really cool thing because hey, as much as we like the original Aerosmith show, 25 years on, it's a little like, okay, can we just get on the ride now?
Yeah.
This I think really steps it up in a big way, makes it very interesting, very compelling. OG, I will say it's sad that this has such a steep height requirement because kids would get a real, they would get a lot out of this if they could actually ride the attraction.
Yeah, I mentioned that on your show today, and yeah, that's exactly it. And that's the one thing that's probably my biggest critique about this is that it's a pretty intense ride. I think it's like 0 to 60 launch or something like that. I mean,
yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy because I mean a lot of kids are going to be left out, right? And even some older people who don't really like the thrill ride stuff. Grandma ain't going to go on this thing, right? I mean,
right.
So it is a shame because the queue is so cool. So, but maybe down the road, I mean, it seems like Muppets are kind of getting like a little, a little bit of a resurgence, right? Like that Muppet show did really well. Looks fantastic. Maybe we get more Muppet stuff. Maybe they make a little Muppet studio in and around that area, something fun like that.
Didn't Josh Tomorrow make a comment at one point when not long after being named CEO, something about the Muppets? Like I get the impression he's a Muppets fan himself, would be my guess.
Yeah,
but I've also,
which Iger was not, by the way.
Yeah.
Right, and I've theorized as well.
Sure.
Would you guys say the Muppets, like they've tried to get it to catch on in recent years, and just nothing's ever really quite hit? I mean, there was a few movies that were okay, but for the most part, Muppets has kind of been there. I kind of view it more as like a Gen X thing, and maybe that fits this ride because I don't like my kids. I don't really think they know Muppets. Like I think they would know Kermit just by being in the culture of it, but like I think for the most part, the demand for Muppets is coming from the Gen X, maybe the older millennial crowd, and maybe this ride fits that because of the demographic that would ride this ride.
I think how you fix that, and then I have a hard out, I have to go, but I do want to say one thing. I think the way you fix that is the Muppet Show format is actually perfect for selling this franchise to younger audiences because every week you could have a new guest. I think the first episode has Sabrina Carpenter, which young people love her. You can do the next one. It could be, I don't know, BTS or somebody that all the kids love, Olivia Rodrigo. And that can be your gateway into this franchise by utilizing these younger stars, Billie Eilish, whoever, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's kind of the way they should do it. I mean, hopefully Disney's smart enough to do that. Like Brandon said, where's the full season renewal? Exactly. The show did great. I mean, let's renew this thing and put some big names in there. And I'm telling you, younger people will watch if the big name is there for them to watch, So
yeah, I think there's a chance that whole area back there does become kind of a Muppets 2.0 courtyard. I think there's a chance. I'm not going to say that's for sure what's going to happen, but it's possible. But we also have a 5 here from Philip Meets. Oh, let me get this right. Meets Scafam 1186. I may have messed all that up. I apologize if I messed that up. But Philip, let's say Philip. Could Rock and Roller Coaster work with lap bar restraints? I have no idea.
Well, I mean, look, you've got Velocicoaster giving you the Mosasaurus roll and all kinds of stuff, right? Like, I think we can overcome some of the issues related to just the lap bar restraints. Now, maybe that reconfigures pipe requirements and so forth, or it might do something there. But with emerging coaster technologies and like coasters really being elevated just simply due to restraints and new cars that are more open than they were before, providing a little bit more thrill and exhilaration, you can do a lot of stuff now. I wish that Disney would have pursued some of that in order to keep this attraction relevant, because as far as coasters go, kind of low on the list in Orlando 25 years on, as one could probably surmise.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume they could, but before we go any further, OG does have to get out of here, and he's doing something out there in California. Who knows what they're doing out there? But before you go, though, be sure to let everybody know where they can find you. And of course, thank you for being here as always.
Oh, absolutely. I love you guys. Thank everybody in the chat for a really great conversation. The party continues with these two fine gentlemen, but you can find me right here on YouTube, Orange Grove 55, talking theme park, studio, corporate, all that good stuff. You can also find me on Instagram and on X, Orange Grove 55. Have a great rest of the show, fellas, and everybody at home. Smash that like button, and I'll talk to y'all later.
Later, man.
Thank you, OG.
Absolutely. Yeah, go subscribe to
Cool.
Orange Grove 55. Go give him some support over there. And let's move on. We talked a little bit about this on your live stream, Vash, but let's talk about Soarin' Across America and what that is kind of looking like right now. And we did watch it. Go check out the replay of Vash's live stream. We kind of went through the ride there of everything in there. But what are your initial thoughts, what you have seen on Soarin' Across America? I'm going to go check it out in a couple of weeks and see it firsthand. But what are your initial thoughts, what you're seeing on Soarin' Across America?
Yeah, I will, full disclosure, I haven't seen this in person. I've only seen POVs from this, but you kind of get it, right? This, as far as experiences go, you can kind of imagine what this is, even if you haven't actually gone on it, only because Soarin', the experience, at least physically, doesn't change all that much, right? So I think you can pretty well surmise what this is going to be, and I still want to wait for color grading and a couple of other things that the camera doesn't necessarily capture in order to get a full review. But initial impressions there, even in this footage, which Drew Disney did, by the way, phenomenal. He's been able to get a lot of POVs of some of these attractions right there, so big credit to him for that. Even in these, you can tell what was CGI, what wasn't. That's really kind of worrisome, because if you are in person, blown up on this huge screen, I'm guessing the differences between live action and CG are going to be even more pronounced, which is not so good. I thought the locations chosen overall are pretty decent. The problem is kind of the angles and everything that they chose for those. I didn't think was the strongest, which was a little bit disappointing. Specifically, like take the Statue of Liberty, for example, right? You fly by there so quickly. It's such a CG shot, not so good. This intro, fantastic, awesome. And if it is CG, well, that's the only way you could really do it, so it makes sense. But I think it really, really works. But some of the other places, just not as good as they could be. Again, I think Ron brought up the smellitizer, the scents that are available in this, maybe not as varied as maybe Soarin' Over the World was, which is also a little bit sad. But that's kind of my impressions right now. It's good. It's just not as good as it could be. And I guess that's my issue with both Muppets and this. Like, I just wanted a little bit more. Didn't quite get there.
Yeah, I mean, and seeing this footage here, like, you're right. The New York thing, it's very CG, which is kind of, I like the rocket part. That going up first part, that is a cool effect there. And it definitely has, I mean, the way they do transitions, there's gonna be some CGI with how they do that. But some of these are, and this is one where you can tell on this boat, I think it's very obvious that is CGI. Because it almost the more you look at it right now, it almost looks like it's just floating on the water sort of thing. I really, like some of the CGI stuff, which I was always an issue with, like when you see the Taj Mahal and sort of around the world, it just takes you out of it because you can tell it just looks like a PS4 graphics. It just doesn't even remotely look real.
Right.
I would, some of the selections, like 2 California spots, like I don't know if you needed LA and Hollywood. There's so many other areas of the country that you could get for the natural beauty, but I get it. They're based in California, so they probably have some bias there.
Probably. The thing about LA is, look, I love LA. I do. The only problem is that we saw LA in Sonora of California. Why not give another area a shot? I thought Vegas would have been perfect. I think Vixen brought that up initially. I was like, oh, Vegas would have been absolutely fantastic. Now, Disneyland, from what I've heard, does compete with Vegas. So maybe that played into it. Unfortunately. It's possible, right? Maybe, I don't know, Seattle with the Space Needle and stuff like that. That could have been maybe a location right there. I think there were others for those night shots that they could have selected. To do LA yet again, and it's right alongside Hollywood. I thought it was a little bit like, I'm not quite sure I would have necessarily done that. Even though I think the Hollywood sign was pretty good, doing LA once again, I think was a missed opportunity for some other locations.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's so many, like even the Rocky Mountains would have been something really cool. Like it's kind of interesting doing Alaska, but I mean, I love the idea of it. I'm very glad they're doing something for the 250th, which we talked about in your live stream as well. Like the bunting is back in Disneyland and things like that. Like, I like the effort there for that. But even this shot here, it's like this is Hawaii, but that doesn't scream Hawaii to me. Right. And when you're looking at this one, I feel like I mentioned in your live stream is like Lost and other shows that have filmed. Like I think there's just better shots they could have used in some of these things, but it's still like I applaud the effort in doing it. I'm glad it's something new. In terms of how long this sticks around, I think it probably has a lot to do with how much demand is on this. So I imagine, and there's been some short-term things that have stuck around much longer than initially anticipated. So this could be something that sticks around for years, or it could just simply be for this year alone. We just don't know yet.
Well, the previous bicentennial has a tremendous impact on the history of Disney, right? That's where we got America Sings and eventually Splash Mountain. That's where all that kind of came from right there. We got, the American segment in not just the electrical water pageant, as we've seen for years and years, but we've also got the America segment in the electrical parade that played for a long time there. We got the America, American Parade. I believe it was one of the longest parades ever assembled right there. So Disney really went all out in 75 when the bicentennial actually took place. So we're very, very excited to see that Disney is taking the semi-quincentennial as they're really making an effort and really to play that up, which is very, very good. A new Soarin' film is perfect. And some of the locations, like I said, are pretty strong, like Mount Rushmore, for example, the Grand Canyon. I think those locations really do play well. But some of the ones that I was looking forward to, like New York and, I don't know, the Louisiana Bayou, I guess, it just didn't play as well as they possibly could have.
Yeah, and Ron brought that up in your live stream too. It's like some of those scenes are not really like, you don't really know what you're looking at necessarily. Because that one on the train, it's the Appalachians, but it could look like something in the Midwest. Like it's just, I think there's more landmark features they could have utilized potentially. But if this is successful, I suppose they could do another iteration of this potentially. But I think it'd be popular nonetheless. But Clifflix did have a 5 here. Thank you, Cliff. He said, did you notice they digitally erased the Disneyland logo off the kid's red shirt? The nice work pal kid. Why did they need to do that?
So that was originally not done for Soarin' Over America. Actually, it was done for when this film or this experience was built for Epcot back in the day. So when Epcot got its version after DCA's version in 2001, that's when they took that and they digitally erased the Disneyland from there so that it would be more consistent with that park. And then that version, which I believe was the first time that was digitized, that is now the version that's played everywhere. So yeah, the Disneyland original right there. It is gone from that redo.
That is interesting. You know, they flew over the Grand Canyon. I don't know if you know this or not. You might know this because you're out in Arizona. There's parts of the Grand Canyon that you cannot fly into. You will be
Yeah.
immediately arrested, and like Black Hawk helicopters will come down. I was kind of hoping maybe Disney would have tried to film there. That would have been kind of interesting about these weird areas. That is one lore I love about there's certain areas of places you cannot go. Well, I learned that a few years ago, and I'm like, that's really interesting. So I don't think they went there, but even the Grand Canyon shot, I feel like you could have got a grander shot. It just seemed like some of these shots were a little bit, like not the greatest you could have done, sort of thing. I know it's nitpicky, but like this, like the Grand Canyon is so iconic. I feel like there could have been a shot like the Niagara Falls shot. Like that could have been a Grand Canyon shot where you're really getting the scope of the whole thing. I love seeing it, but I feel like there were better shots to be had for some of these as well.
I agree. I totally agree with you. I think like Alaska, for example, it's like, all right, you kind of you pan over to the snow-capped mountains, but what about flying over it? Which I guess would have been a little bit like soaring over California, but that shot works for a reason versus kind of like, oh, we're taking this maybe scenic shot here where we're distant from them. I don't know if it necessarily plays as well. I agree with you, Jared. There are just some inclusions here. Even Hawaii makes perfect sense. Yeah. Awesome, fantastic. But is this the shot you use? I just don't think it is. So it's like, it's weird. With this, they were just a little bit off. Locations were great, most of them, but just a little bit off where they didn't quite capture the magic of those locations. And because of how they filmed them, like you said, led to a lot of confusion of what these actually were. I found myself looking them up a lot more than maybe the two previous incarnations of this attraction.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder, do you think it has anything to do with maybe they were using drones and not helicopters? Maybe they just had a limitation on the equipment they were using. Could they get these like big high shots? Maybe. I
don't know. Perhaps, but I have to look into that because they did use a helicopter for with a nice sized camera for the Mount Rushmore.
That's what I thought. Right there.
Yeah. So I don't know if the technology changed anything. I know this is, I think, being done by Tom Fitzgerald, which he has a certain way of working. Like, he has a certain way of doing his redos. A little bit hit or miss. This one was just a little bit of a miss, and I don't know why. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the thought process here was. Maybe like for the New York shot, right? You may have been in a position where, okay, well, to do a long establishing shot would have taken a little bit longer. So to get everything in one go and to get it within the time in order to have more locations, let's do it fast. I could have been the thought process there, but I think you do a disservice to that location when you do that. So it's give and take.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, we're gonna go check it out here in a couple of weeks, and I'll give some more full thoughts after seeing it, because there is, sometimes you see this stuff on your computer, you see it in real life is different, but even hearing Ron's feedback about having seen it, I think some of these transitions can be a little like this. I can imagine in person this would be like, oh wow, all of a sudden there's just this CGI boat that's in the middle of nowhere, where it could have been a cool little serene shot there, but again, you're right, it's like, is this Louisiana or is this the Everglades? Like, you don't really know exactly what you're looking at necessarily, but we'll see. I mean, I think I had a lot of anticipation for this, and I still do on some level, but I really think after seeing the animation courtyard and what they did with the Muppets, I really feel like those were executed pretty well. And this one, it left me, even though I was probably more excited for this one may be one where I'm like, well, we'll see, but I'll wait till I actually experience it till I have my final judgment on it. But it'd be kind of unfortunate if this was the one that ended up being kind of the it's okay. I don't want that for Soarin' and something for like the 250th anniversary either.
Yeah. You provide me your thoughts on when this officially opens, when you actually see it, and so forth, because I'm really curious if your experience changes how you felt. For Ron, it didn't look like it changed that much, but I'm curious to see what you actually think. Clifflix has a great super chat, by the way, we had to put on the screen because I think it's perfect.
Cliff has a 5. I'm so glad they promoted LA in the Hollywood industry in the 250th. there's no way they were not going to pat themselves on the back.
It's true. It's true.
Like
hey, look.
Yeah. Just
you know it's LA because they're searching for somebody. Yeah,
that's a good point. You know, at least they didn't. I guess at least they didn't show Skid Row or something like that. Where you're just like, oh my gosh, what is going? Or film it during the fires that they had or something. That could have been a little bit unfortunate there. But yeah,
not good for sure. But and Vegas, man, Vegas was the way to go. But
Vegas would have been cool.
We did not get that.
Yeah, Vegas could have been really cool. Even like, I mean, the thing is, they probably did it on Soarin' or over California, but it's like even some of the northern parts of California where you got a lot of farmland, just different parts. Like even like you were saying, the Space Needle. Like I think there were some better choice. Even in Colorado itself, I mean, you got a lot of different natural geographic landmarks you could really take advantage of, and unfortunately they didn't do it. But I think this will probably still be I think this will be popular. I'm very curious what the wait times of this are going to be when it opens and what it kind of maintains, because this was roughly like, it depends on the day. It was probably anywhere from like 45 minutes to an hour on average. I'd say on like most days, maybe popped up like an hour and a half on a really busy day. So I'm curious where this kind of settles after a few months of where the kind of the wait times are on this.
Yeah, because you got to remember, I mean, Soarin', the original version, was so popular. They added a third theater, which Disney almost never does. I think that Toy Story Movie Mania they did something similar where they added the third track. This was unbelievably popular, and I'm very curious, like you said, to see what the demand is for this. And do we ever, now with 3 films under our belt, do we ever get a rotating theater experience? That would be quite interesting. I mean, you have the 3 theaters out there, at least in Epcot. I don't know, maybe, I think it was Tom from WDW News Today was talking about maybe like 1 show per theater. It's an interesting idea.
It is interesting. I think variability in rides is something that you can definitely utilize for rewritability. And if you got 3 films, and even if you did, like, I've even said this for Galaxy's Edge, but like have a season. So let's say if you're going to do the prequels, original trilogy and sequel, you could have seasons in a land where it's like, hey, for this quarter, it's going to be prequels. And then you could do the same thing with Soarin'. Like you could have these rotation things. I think that could work. I think that'd be actually kind of cool if they did that.
It's funny you say that because DCA does that today. So
do they really?
For like the spring season, for like what is it? I think it's like for our Food and Wine Festival, or like for the spring, they bring it out, the original California version for Soarin', on that like little window, and then they go back to World. They do that right now for pass holders. I don't know how quite that would work for Walt Disney World, just given the fact that people from all over the world come to Walt Disney World. They only have like a once in a lifetime vacation. Right. They kind of want to see what's there, so I think that's why they haven't brought it out yet. But I would agree with you, to have a seasonality to this, I think would give it a lot of long-term play. Yeah,
I agree. We also have a 5 here from Philip. He was talking about the Muppet stuff. He says, unfortunate kids are not tall enough, can't even be in the queue to see the pre-show for Muppets Coaster.
Yeah.
I suppose, I mean, I guess you could always take them through the queue. They just don't ride, but I don't, that's not something I mean, you see that sometimes in Universal for the Wizarding World stuff, in Hogwarts Castle. A lot of times people will walk through it and not ride the attraction, but for the most part, most people are not going to do that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you take your kids through it, then if they're too small enough, like if they're not tall enough to ride, then that necessarily means that they might not be tall enough to be by themselves. And so like, does somebody wait for them? And it gets a little bit complicated. It's a little bit unfortunate, because I think OG brought up this point. I think I agree with it very much so. Like Tiana's, for example, right? One of the limitations with Tiana's is that, well, that's kind of a little girl franchise. Well, what if you have Tiana there at like the Splash Mountain overlay, and she really wants to see Tiana in her ride, but she can't go because she's not tall enough. It's kind of like, it's a little bit disappointing to have some of these kid-friendly IPs be restricted by these height requirements.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think whenever my kids are, for the most part, they can ride most things. But yeah, it's like, I remember the first time I went to Universal and she really wanted to go through Hogwarts you see the Hogwarts Castle, and so it's kind of a whole thing of like, you talk to the team members, like they'll let you do it. It's just another step, and it's just a lot of stuff that people aren't gonna mess with. But an already complicated vacation. But we do have, what's up, theme park philosophy? We got theme park philosophy in the house. We'll see how that one goes. But I think all in all, like we were talking about, my wife and I recorded our Disney World edition of the show for the podcast for it's coming out tomorrow. And all the like Cool Kids Summer stuff, like they have a ton. They are literally throwing almost everything they can this summer at like new attractions, discounts, Cool Kids Summer, like all these things. They are just throwing it at the wall here. And I think I've alluded to many times, they learned from last summer that shows and parades are not going to move the needle on attendance, especially with a brand new theme park down the road. And so now you've got this situation where you got Big Thunder. I would even say Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin I love that ride now. And I hated that ride. I hated the shooting system of that ride. It is a much improved attraction. Big Thunder, a lot of the thoughts we had about that are kind of my thoughts on it. It's like, it's still Big Thunder. It's much smoother, but some of the details aren't quite there. And some of the, like the finale scene definitely feels very, like it's better than what it was sort of thing. But you got that, you got Buzz Lightyear, now you got Soarin', you got Muppets, you got the Animation Corey. Like they got like a handful of things of actual attractions to try and get people in here on top of the discount. So we'll see how it goes this summer for them. But I definitely think that the summer's been a weird time too, because like it hasn't been as busy in the summer as it historically has been either. Like we're going to be there on July 3rd through the 4th, and we were there the last time a couple of years ago on July 3rd, and the park was not busy like at all. Like wait times were 20 minutes on most stuff, and and usually around holidays at Walt Disney World, it is an insane for the most part. So it's kind of interesting where you've seen a little bit difference of the way the crowds come to the parks. And now you've got, I would even say, talk about the hotels, Disney and Universal have got some pretty aggressive hotel pricing going on this summer too. So definitely kind of interesting how they're setting up for the summer between the two of them.
It's really, really interesting, really fascinating to see the response from Disney from that very low summer in 2025. Obviously, Epic Universe might have eaten their lunch just a little bit right there. I know they were playing it down in earnings, but I think it got them. And honestly, I think that's what kind of did in Jeff Valley for the chairman job. I think they kind of look at that and going, it's not quite what we want to see. Try to respond accordingly with all these new refurbs and so forth and all these new overlays and all of that. We'll see what that actually does to attendance. I think some of those pretty decent. Some of those maybe not as great as they could be, like in the case of Big Thunder, for example. But with these discounts, with Cool Kids Summer, with all these promotions and so forth, and maybe the 250th plays into that as well, they're really wanting to get, I think, as many people in there as possible to kind of shore up those numbers right there. Because, like I said, during summers, it's Walt Disney World's been a little bit of a drag. So let's see what they do. I'm very curious to see if these investments actually pay off.
Agreed. And I forgot about this. Salivating Steve said Smuggler's Run update opening this week too. That is another one.
That's true.
That is another one you've got there. Although we still don't have the original trilogy timeline in our Galaxy's Edge. I do think that comes, but definitely a lot of stuff almost, well, then I would also throw in the Bluey stuff coming to Animal Kingdom. I think that might be something. It's interesting in that park because there's not much there for kids to do. I think that they're going to use the reservation type. What do they call that thing? Virtual queue for that. And I think they almost have to, because where they're putting that, my first question when I saw where they were putting that over there, I was like, how are you going to manage the lines in that thing? Because that train doesn't hold that many people, but they're doing it that way. So I think that thing is going to be popular, but it's only open, I think it's 8 a.m. until like 3:30. It's not even really open that late when they announced. That's
a real big capacity concern right there, because 3 hours.
It is. I saw the hours and I have no doubt Bluey is massive, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to do a Bluey Land at some point. But in that park, the only question I have in that park is like, is the Bluey meet and greet enough of a draw to really get families over there? Because that's kind of the only thing for little kids to do is that Bluey meet and greet Animal Kingdom.
That's a good point. And I'll just say this: if Disneyland is any indication, I mean, Bluey was unbelievably successful. I mean, I was shocked. I was like, the Fantasyland Theater, really? I was like, oh, man. that's just big enough to hold all these guys. And that show packs out. So I think a lot of people, I think Jim Shaw included, are kind of concerned about the capacity issues related to where they actually place an Animal Kingdom. Probably the right inclusion there, but is it the right spot? We'll see. I mean, if it gets really bad, I can see them, moving it to other places, maybe implementing a virtual queue, but like I said, that's not ideal. I was a little bit shocked that they would actually place it back there, but I suppose we'll see. A lot of aggressive things, though, to really shore up Walt Disney World. And honestly, it's the obvious, right? I mean, you can discount all you want, but really what gets people in the door is attractions. Really what gets people in the door is, are the things that they're doing now. I think they would have loved to have even half of these things last year when Epic Universe opened, which was a little bit surprising to see that they didn't really respond to Epic Universe in a big way. Now they are. And again, folks, I think it's better for the consumer that they do. It's sad that we have to lose stuff like Muppet Vision 3D and all of that. We can go on the laundry list of things that we lost, but this is what you do to respond. You maintain your flagship, which they're doing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And we're going to talk about the newly named Walt Disney World president. But real quick, I got a super chat from Cliff Flicks, and I got a question for you. We have a 5 from Cliff Flicks. Thank you, Cliff. Been very generous this evening. It says, I don't think Epic is hurting Disney. I think Disney has significantly damaged their own relationship with their customers. Disney did this to itself. I think I think that is true on some level. I think Epic, the thing with Epic, at least in my opinion, from what I saw, because I covered Epic heavily in the lead up to an opening, you would hear a lot of people being like, oh, it's going to destroy Disney. They're in, and it's like, well, that never was going to happen. Like, it wasn't going to open up in Magic Kingdom just empty and everyone's at Epic Universe. But it's this game that Universal is playing where it's like you just keep chipping away. Now you got Epic in the game. That changes the dynamics in terms of people staying there longer. You add more things. And it's almost a chess match that just keeps going on. I don't know what. Now, I agree with you. In the earnings call, they mentioned twice that Epic Universe headwinds. So they were admitting that there was something that Epic was doing to them that in the lead up to Epic, they did not have the same attitude about it. They were saying it was going to help them out and all this stuff. So I think on some level, it did have an impact. Obviously, they still had record revenue quarters when Epic was there, but the attendance wasn't quite where I think they expected it to be. And I think this is partly why you're seeing all this summer alluding to that. But what are your thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree with you. I think there was some impact. So I'll disagree with Clifflix just a little bit right here. I think there was some cannibalization. I think we see that in the reports. So I think the hospitality industry noticed a 10% increase in overall hotel bookings in the Florida area. But then you look at Walt Disney World, and obviously there was a slow summer for them. But it's like when you look at 10%, it's like, okay, well that's not quite enough to feed Epic on its own, right? So like what I'm saying is that if you add a new park, you would expect even more hotel guests to book if in fact they didn't drop something and go to Epic by itself. And so it's like, okay, where did that come from? Like, were those guests that were making modifications to the vacation sort of see Epic, what did they take out? I think it was Disney. So,
or at least like Animal Kingdom, like that was my whole thing too. It's like Magic Kingdom wasn't going to hit that much, if any, but Animal Kingdom was definitely going to feel it, and maybe Hollywood Studios and Epcot, like those are the parks that would feel it much more than your flagship. And so well, what's interesting, I noticed this a couple times of it's anecdotal, but I talked to 2 different owners of travel agencies that specialize in Disney vacations. One of them was our sponsor, one of them was another one that I just know. And they both said last summer, what was interesting is I expected them to say like, oh, a lot more people were doing split trips, Disney and Universal, but they were seeing a lot of families who are traditionally Disney vacation families booking week-long trips at Universal. And both of them, then they don't know each other. They were just telling me this stuff, and I was like, that's interesting. Now, granted, it's anecdotal. It's 2 agencies, but they're agencies that specialize in Disney that were seeing that. And I think that's kind of telling as well of like maybe where some people are willing to go to Universal and check them out for an entire week, where that was not even remotely a possibility 10 years ago. People were not spending a week at Universal Orlando by any means.
Right. And I'm not disagreeing with Cliff completely. I do think Disney has damaged its reputation. to some degree right there, and I think they're on the way of getting some of that back, which is very, very interesting. But to your point, that's what I heard as well. I heard, a lot of people, Jared, to your point, people who would usually have Disney as their home base, and even if they would visit other attractions in the Orlando area, they would always come back to Disney. That gravitational center of gravity shifted when Epic actually opened, and I think Epic knew that they were going to do that because, well, that's why they added 3 hotels in preparation for Epic in order for that gravitational shift to take place. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, maybe they do that 1 year, but if your product's like really good, maybe they do that the next year and the next year and the next year,
right?
And that all cumulatively over 5 years or 10 years, that might have a dramatic effect right there. So as more people experience your product and kind of say, hey, you know what, these rooms are very, very clean, they're very centrally located, they're cheaper than maybe Disney, and so people have different ideas there. It's fascinating because when Wizarding World opened in 2010, one of the things that got Disney to react in the way that they did in reaction to the Wizarding World opening was people were coming into the Polynesian, but they were carrying like a whole bunch of Universal bags with them of all this Harry Potter merch, right? And it was like, oh, we got problems. But now you're seeing maybe they don't go to the Poly with their Universal merch. Maybe they go to the Helios or something like that. That's the kind of shift I think we're seeing.
Well, and like you alluded to, there's a compounding effect positively and negatively. And I think if you look at Universal, I think, especially the last decade, as much market share as they've eaten up, they are compounding in the direction you want to go. And Disney's interesting because from the business perspective, they're compounding more revenue. But from the guest side, I feel like there is a little bit of that going the wrong way in terms of how people feel. And it's kind of an interesting dynamic there. And I think you are seeing Disney come in here this summer and maybe trying to reverse some of that. Even though if you looked at them financially, they'd say, well, you don't need to do all this stuff. You just had record-breaking quarters. But obviously they're saying something that makes them feel like they need to do these things. And so I think for a lot of the people that were saying Disney's not worried at all or any of this stuff, I think their actions show otherwise. That they obviously something, I'm not going to say spooked them, but something they were like, oh, okay, we need to actually shore some of this stuff up. And I think we're kind of seeing that, play out this summer a little bit.
Absolutely. This summer and also, too, in the years beyond, right? Because we're getting major expansions in Magic Kingdom. We're getting major expansions in Animal Kingdom, Disney Studios. You don't react this way unless a new player has entered the game. Because Disney, I mean, for so long, they were okay with coasting. It's like, okay, well, we don't necessarily have to meaningfully expand our footprint right now. People keep coming back, and we're good to go. That dynamic changed once with the Wizarding World. I think it's changed again with Epic Universe, as I think Epic Universe's or Comcast's own earnings call will show.
Yep, I agree. And like you were saying, from the guest standpoint, Disney's built a bunch of stuff. Universal just opened a new park. They're continuing to build stuff. So if you're a fan of theme parks, I mean, competition's great. I mean, I think they're coming in here and trying to just a theme parks arms race, as I like to say. And I think that's good for the consumer. Now, you mentioned you think one of the reasons Jeff Vail was fired. We're going to go into talking about the new Disney World president here. I'm curious, and I don't know the answer to this. How much impact does, say, Disneyland or Disney World's president have on the actual parks? Like, do they have a pretty big role on these things, or is it kind of backseat to kind of experiences as a whole?
A lot of people attribute individual offerings going away or being discontinued or being added as something originating from the CEO or the chairman. Not quite. I mean, it really does. The president position has a big impact in budgets, in what's allocated, in what is ultimately invested, in the needs of the resort, and what the Imagineers can actually are able to do, right? Because it's an interesting thing that happens when the Imagineers work with the park presidents. It's almost like they are, it's how do I describe this? It's very, very interesting. It's like the it's like a client relationship, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And they are facilitating the needs of that park president, so they can really shape the future of your park pretty enormously, just depending on what they actually do. I mean, we saw this honestly most profoundly in the 1990s with Paul Pressler and Cynthia Harris. Honestly, we saw that entire dynamic of the Disneyland Resort change forever. Previously, I mean, there are old OC Register articles dating back to like the 1980s and the early 1990s, you know, pouring on the accolades of Disney's maintenance department, saying it was one of the best in the world, that being at Disneyland. And that changed so badly in just a short number of years the Paul President since the Harris took over, that we actually had not one but two fatalities at the Disneyland Resort related directly to maintenance and training. How does that happen in that span? That's why it happens. It's so important. I mean, look, one of the reasons why we don't have Rivers of America anymore is because of Jeff Valley saying, look, this isn't a place that revenue actually stems from. This is a place where we dump revenue in. So it can really shape the experience for a guest. It can really shape, honestly, the monetary output of these parks and their revenue potential and everything else. So it is, I would say, important tracking this stuff because it can give you an insight on what happens. On conversely, right, with Disneyland, when Matt We Met came in, he really restored a lot of those foundational principles, got back to preventive maintenance, allocated a lot of budget to the maintaining of the theme parks, like Tiki Room, for example. Got a major overhaul from that, which we still benefit from today. And that led him to be ultimately the CEO of Cedar Fair and, turn that whole operation around as well. So it's a big deal. These things are not little, they're not small executives. And what we attribute to when it comes to the parks and how they're run might be closer to the parks president than the CEO or even the chairman position.
That makes sense from the park operations for sure. And I think that's, I don't have any inside info on this. My gut reaction to Jeff Valley stepping down, I found the timing interesting from DeMauro coming in of it might be a very convenient retirement of just being like, hey, because you also don't want the optic. Let's just go down the rabbit hole. Let's say Jeff Valley is being fired. You're like, you're not doing a good job. Wouldn't you out here? They also don't want the optics of firing Disney World's president necessarily whenever there are the revenue numbers there. So a retirement and go whatever package he'll get, might be a way to handle that problem and move on and move on to a guy that DeMauro wants in there or maybe Thomas Masloom wants in there. I kind of feel like that may be what happened or has happened here in terms of Valley stepping down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and James Alday saying it's I Googled it, the head of experiences makes that decision. I believe with Rivers of America specifically, Josh DeMauro would have made that call. That call isn't made by the chairman unless Jeff Valley maps it out for him and ultimately says yay or nay and approves that budget right there. So he makes that case in order for that task to be accomplished right there. So it's a little bit give and take. I understand that obviously there are some higher up decisions that need to be made either by Burbank and so forth, but really the culture and how that's shaped and their emphasis placed on either revenue or guest experience and all of that is shaped really from the resort head, which was significant to go into Joe Scott's portfolio or his resume right there. So I guess he started out in 1981 as a frontline cast member and Jungle Cruise skipper. So his home park is Walt Disney World right there, which is pretty good. He understands how it works on like the cast member level, which I think is significant because not every single park's head comes from that. Sometimes they're outside hires, they bring them in, and like Paul Purser, for example, he came from the Disney store, and so didn't really have that front line cast member experience, and so maybe that shaped his decision making in that. Obviously, this is a guy that started from the ground up, which is good. In 1992, he was made he was put on like a task force for park openings, and actually oversaw the openings of Disney's Animal Kingdom, Disney's California Adventure, and Disneyland Paris. That was very, very interesting. So got to oversee the openings of a lot of those parks, and some of those maybe didn't quite work out, but he was part of that for sure. And then in 1988, he was brought over to oversee a lot of the aspects revolving around let me see right here. Okay, I just want to make sure my timeline here. Specifically in 1988, he oversaw the Asia region of Animal Kingdom. That was very, very interesting. He was a team leader for Disney's California Adventure in 2001 for the opening of that. So he got to see some of the products that weren't maybe necessarily successful out of the gate. And I got to oversee a little bit of their development right there. 2004, 2006, he was director of park operations or head of operations for Walt Disney World Resort. So that's kind of an interesting time period right there. Got to see the Walt Disney World operation and got to experience it. So he knows what it should look like if you're a fan of that era of the parks. Then 2006, for 3 years, he was taken over to Tokyo in order to oversee their big 25th anniversary celebration that they had. So saw that, and in 2009, that's where he really gets the big step up. He was director of park operations of Walt Disney World Resort for just a period of time before being the chief operating officer of Disneyland Paris, which 2009 to 2014, he got to oversee like Toy Story Playland, for example, be added to the Walt Disney Studios Park out there. Got to see the 20th anniversary celebration, which, that added like the fountains and so forth for the, front of the castle and all of that. A lot of the infrastructure that he still uses today, pretty significant there, and got to see the opening of, or got to lead the opening of Remy's Ratatouille Adventure in Walt Disney Studios Paris. Then, in 2014 to 2018, he was the senior vice president of experiences, planning, and integration at Disney Parks and Resorts, which is, I guess, in my research for that, was a high-level strategic and operational planning role focused on enhancing guest experiences and integrating operations across resorts and supporting company-wide initiatives. Take that as you will. And then in 2018, that's when he's also put in a big role overseeing Shanghai. Remember, this is Bob Iger's baby right here. Don't get this wrong.
Yeah,
so
good point.
He oversaw that from 2018 to about 2025. He was the president and general manager of Shanghai Disney Resort. Got to oversee their big expansion in the form of Zootopia. That was in December of 2023 of that year, and also got to oversee this park achieve its 100 million guest milestone within a decade, which is pretty impressive for a new park to achieve that milestone in such a short period of time. Then, for a little bit, when Thomas Maslin was made the head of Disneyland, he was switched over to Signature Experiences from Cruise Line and all that. Only got to stay there for a little while there, but got to oversee that operation as well, before now being placed as the president of Walt Disney World Resort. So that's a 40-year history on Joe Scott. I think it's a pretty big win for Walt Disney World. I don't really see a lot of misses there, honestly, when looking at the trajectory of a lot of those resorts that he oversaw, a lot of those celebrations that he oversaw. I think he kind of gets it. He also got to see a lot of expansion in those various parks, which is going to be crucial in facilitating for the future of Walt Disney World and the expansions that they're currently undergoing right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting bringing in a new president while all this construction is going on. Like, one would assume if Jeff Vail was really part of all this and really pushing all this, and all of a sudden he's out the door, one would assume you would not willingly retire at that point. You'd want to see the culmination of all these things going on. But everything that, like, I did a little bit, obviously you did way more in-depth research than I did, but knowing that he was a Jungle Cruise skipper, he was around these parks when I would say they were run, I would say better versions of these parks, is something I definitely like to see here. And it's not off. I mean, one thing you say about Disney, they do a lot of times, people can work within the company and work their way up. So seeing a guy become the president of the park that used to work in the park back in its heyday, I think potentially that's a great thing. Now, Jeff Vail was with the company for 36 years, but I would say that maybe wasn't as good of a tenure, at least in my opinion. I was not a big fan of the things that he was doing, but I do feel like there's pretty good, like, I don't think a lot of people know who he is quite yet, but from the things that I've started seeing, I think most people are pretty encouraged by this, by him getting this nod in this position from what I've seen.
I'm pretty encouraged by it too. Thomas Maslin picking a guy that was previously on Signature Experiences, I think is pretty strong. I always love Signature Experiences because, Matt Ouimet, and somebody actually mentioned in the chat right there, pushed for those refurbs for the 50th anniversary of Disneyland. Yeah, absolutely. But he came from Signature Experiences. He understood the white glove treatment, understood what Disneyland needed at such a crucial time. He was a guy that, would wait in line with other guests and get an idea of the operation, really getting into those frontline roles and so forth, really saw it from the ground. there at Disneyland and really was able to absorb that and implement a lot of those strategies based on that feedback. I think George Kalogridis started out as a frontline cast member. I think he was waiting tables, if I'm not mistaken, at the Contemporary or something like that. Obviously, he led Walt Disney World for a period of time there. People recognize him as somebody who really ran that ship quite well. So I kind of like that cast member experience along with that signature experience, I guess.
Yeah.
I like that. But I also like to see, because of so much growth going on at Walt Disney World, right? I think it's really important to have somebody there who understands, okay, if you expand these parks, how do you facilitate that? Where does your construction umbilicus come from? How do you keep these parks open operationally while these expansions actually take place? When do you actually ship in materials, and when does the allowed stuff get done so that you can meet your timeline, meet your budgets, but also to not disrupt the actual guest experience there? All of those things are crucial in organizing and finding out. And Joe Scott has done that multiple times in his 40-year career, which is good.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying there. Things I've read about him, I feel pretty good about this one. And if he's going to have more of a focus, like you were saying, the white glove treatment, these are the things that I think what made Disney so unique was these little details that have just slowly been removed. And I'm not putting that all on Jeff Vail, but obviously on some level he did have involvement with that. I think a lot of it is, we talked about short-term mindset of like, got to show more revenue. Well, let's cut some maintenance. Let's cut here. Let's cut this. And all of a sudden you're kind of left with like, well, what is left of this? And I mean, I would start a campaign right now. Like it's not even something that I would be able to benefit from, but I still think bringing back the Magical Express would be such a win for people. And I think even of all the things people are upset about, and we've got a couple of supers here from Cliff we're going to get to in a minute, but Cliff has talked about many times about how, Disney has turned him away from the things that they did. It kind of made him not want to go there anymore. I feel like something like Magical Express coming back or some of these little things that are missing would be something that a lot of people would be like, okay, like that's a goodwill gesture of like, we hear your feedback sort of thing. And maybe this is, getting these, if you're thinking now, who knows what they're thinking, but let's say you got 3 to 5 years before most of these things start coming online. You start fixing some of these things now in the interim. And by the time these things open, because I will also say Hugh Johnson, I'm imagining you saw this. He gave that little talk at Moffett-Nathanson and essentially said in there, not only are we going to grow the parks, we're going to grow the revenue, which means prices are going to continue to go up. He wasn't even really hiding that much. And so if you're going to demand these prices and if they're already bringing prices up during construction, just imagine when these things are done, what the prices are going to do. I've felt for a long time, you're going to have to bring the value of a Disney vacation up to meet that. I would even say now, but especially as you get closer, well into the $200 per day price range of a day ticket, these are things that you could proactively do before you hit that point and you're like, oh no, people, what's going on here? Then you have to go and fix them. Maybe it could be a little of that. Who knows? But maybe that's something they're thinking.
Yeah, the fear is that, because Hugh Johnston definitely said some things that were like, oh, that's not great. He really put an emphasis on cruise line, right? And Thomas Muslim was selected mainly because of his association with Disney Signature Experiences. Now you get another Signature Experiences guy in there. The bad thing about that potentially is that, you get these guys in these positions in order to run these parks like Cruise Line, which is they're two separate products. You really can't. And so, if you're trying to make these into like luxury experiences and all of that, one can only imagine what that actually looks like. I don't think it's necessarily good. But if it's bringing in the tenets of Cruise Line that make it so fantastic, which is a emphasis on value and an emphasis on customer experience, like customer service, I think both of those, I think these parks could really benefit from. And I think the revenues will work themselves out if you actually do that. The interesting thing to note about all of this and where they go is what path will they actually ultimately choose. And I think has, if you're looking to increase the revenue substantially of parks, I don't know how to necessarily do that without increasing the price. And my hope is that they increase the value with that. But if you're looking for those big, operating income gains, maybe that's not possible.
Yeah. What's funny about you saying how, being more like the cruise lines, a lot of people, we're going on a Disney cruise later this year. I've never been on one, but I've known a lot of people that do tons of Disney cruises, and they'll say the service on the cruises is like what you used to get in the parks. So it's kind of ironic if that's the thinking there, that you're bringing this full circle to where the cruise line was the service you used to get, and now you're trying to bring the service that the cruise line has back into the parks. It's kind of a funny little roundabout way of doing that. But I mean, I think if you're looking at Disney and it's like they've had all these revenue gains with all these complaints that have gone on, it is an interesting thing to see them addressing, like I said, this summer with stuff, and maybe here with the new president. I'm one of my complaints about Disney is they're always so reactive to things and not really proactive. And like you were saying, you do a lot of this stuff, the revenue will. I mean, that doesn't really probably work in a boardroom or for Wall Street, but I think in just the scheme of things, it's like these things will work themselves out if you're taking care of the guests. But they also want to put everything on a spreadsheet and all this stuff like that. But I think if you're able to bring that back, if you're proactively doing that, like you could alleviate some of these things that have gone on and really come out of this relatively unscathed. You're still going to have continued competition from Universal. I guess from a revenue standpoint, from a brand standpoint, that's, you can debate that and look at that where it is in pop culture and the other things in the company. But I think it's interesting that maybe they're getting more of a proactive posture under Tomorrow. And it makes me wonder as well if Bob Iger was still around, I imagine Jeff Vail would still be here. Potentially.
It might be. That's an interesting point. He might not be might have been a Bob Iger guy, which a lot of people thought of him as. And look, I think Iger, I mean, if you juxtapose Iger with Mike Lesnar, he was super hungry, right? He was definitely a proactive guy. He's like, hey, Church Street Station's getting business, let's do that. It was crazy how proactive he actually was. Whereas Bob Iger, he was okay with coasting, especially with Walt Disney World. And I think that's gotten them into in trouble. I think coasting on your laurels there only gets you so far, so long. And I think Jeff Valley is starting to realize that the kind of the very end there, and it's like, yeah, you should have been I think you should have been more proactive sooner, especially with Universal creating so much competition for you and kind of eating into that market share just a little bit, and they never really did anything about it. Here, though, I think with Joe Scott, you might get, to your point, Jared, a more proactive Disney, which I think is very, very good. I think they have to be more reactive to the market and market trends. I think they have to really place an emphasis on value and on customer service, which Thomas Mausam has said, hey, that's one of the big things that we were working on at Disneyland. Hopefully that becomes a experiences-wide initiative. We'll see on that. But if you need a guy to do that, Joe Scott might be your guy. So yeah. I'm optimistic about his appointment. It's hard to get worse than Jeff Valley. I firmly believe that. So, James, I'll take you to your point. I think if you're looking for somebody who could fix Walt Disney World, you may find your guy.
Yeah, and I always one thing I like about Universal and Mark Woodbury is Mark Woodbury he was in their creative end, and that's where he started. So he's always had a guest, what does the guest want perspective. Right. And I think getting more guys and people into these roles that have that perspective is a good thing. And I think Mark Woodbury's done a fantastic job with Universal and turning them around. And really, you could argue as well, the things that Disney, by resting on the laurels, kind of opened the door for Universal to do what they did because of that. And it's almost, you could say, human nature to kind of like, oh, I'm at the top. What do I have to really hustle for? And then you kind of open it up. This happens in sports and life and business, all sorts of things. So in many ways, Disney created the opening for Universal to do what they're doing. Obviously, they've had to invest the money and do the things that they've done, but they opened the door for it to happen. And I think, honestly, going forward, it's just going to be more competitive in Orlando. And I think coming down to the small details of what set you apart is a good thing to focus on. Like even this summer was Cool Kids Summer. You're leaning into where Disney's strength is, which is kids and families. And I think that's a no-brainer. Like, sure, like they had a thing talking about they're bringing bottle warmers and things for like littles and things like that. leaning into that is not a bad thing. I mean, that is a thing that Universal has not really gotten into yet. So you see some of that a little bit there as well. But we have a couple of super chats from Cliff Flicks. We have a 5 here, and he says, "Who has more authority, Parks and Experiences president or Stories Matter in Burbank?" He says, "I say Stories Matter because these guys terrorize JPEG."
It's a good point right there.
We have a buzzer in his office, like, "Oh, it's them again. Oh no."
Yeah. Now, Stories Matter. We haven't really heard from them ever since. I think the new administration, actually in Washington D.C., was elected right there, and placed an emphasis on, hey, if these companies put an emphasis on these what are DEI initiatives to the point where it might become a legal issue, we're going to actually pursue that. You saw Disney change their tune on Stories Matter, and a lot of those other initiatives really quick. Now, I'm not saying that those don't exist anymore, just saying I'm not really hearing much from them. From what we understand, they are not playing necessarily as big of a role as they did before. You're seeing some stuff that I don't think you get Mount Rushmore, for example, in Soren with Stories Matter. I just don't see that happening. So the fact that you did see some of those things that might not be indicative of a Stories Matter initiative was very, very interesting. I think Thomas Maslin might be in control there, which I think is good, because maybe we could avoid stuff like, I don't know, Thomas by Adventure, for example, where that could have been a really great ride. It just wasn't, right. Especially with replacing Splash Mountain. Maybe perhaps we keep some Splash Mountain-like attractions around and are more surgical with our approaches if we're going to change them, rather than like blunt force, okay, big replacement with Tiana's by Adventure and it not actually shaping up to be the attraction that I think everybody wanted.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I mean, I think I read an article that talking about it wasn't disbanded, but it was much less impactful around Disney. Yeah. So maybe you're seeing, I mean, I think if anything, like if you're in a competition, hamstringing yourself with extra things is not necessarily always going to be the best way to go forward anyways. I think a lot of times if you talk about Hollywood and their inability seemingly to do anything outside of sequels and remakes of things, I've often said it's creativity is kind of like a muscle. If you're really hampered, you can't do that because of X, Y, and Z, and this you're not going to be as strong. And I think if you're dealing with, you need to be imaginative, you need to be pushing boundaries, not limiting yourself based on some sort of internal group that's always looking for things to find. And I'm not saying there's not things to be improve on, but if you're always a division like that is going to find things if that's their job. And so it's like, yeah, of course, if you give them a bunch of power, they're going to find more and more things. They're going to justify their jobs. It's one of those things where it's like, if you, not that you completely get rid of them, but you just don't give them as much of influence, right? You can start seeing how some of that could change a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's how you get, like, I don't know, like the what is it, Hello Friends, or the gender neutral language, and so forth, and it's all these kind of postmodernistic actions. Where does that stem from? It stems from that cultural shift right there. Well, if you're not giving them as much power, do we cut a little bit of that off? I think we do. And so if you're looking for a more traditional experience, that could be beneficial for doing that. And I understand it might not be the most inclusive thing, but if you're looking for a traditional experience and you're looking to maintain like the nostalgia and so forth that's attached to Walt Disney World and all of that, I think it's really important. Say Levy.
Yeah, I agree. And we have another 5 from Cliff as well. Thank you, Cliff. He says, I have personally experienced Disney Tokyo and it stunned me. I say turn all global parks over to Oriental Land Company. They are incredible. I have heard the same. I have heard very, very positive things about Disney Tokyo, which I hopefully can go over there sometime in the near future. But I mean, what did you say? What's his? I'm going to get his name wrong again. The new president. What's his name again? Joe Schluter. Is that right?
Joe Scott.
Joe Scott. Yeah, Joe. He was involved in Disney Tokyo, which I would say if anybody's ever been involved in anything going on there, I think that's a plus. Hearing that come out of his background.
No, I think one of the heads of the Imagineering division that used to oversee Tokyo is now head of the Imagineering oversight for Disneyland now, and I think Jill Ostorino came from a couple of Tokyo projects herself. I think she oversaw Fantasy Springs and a couple of other things. I think it's really exciting to see some of these executives who have dipped their toes into the Oriental Land Company a little bit be elevated to these positions and where they can actually provide some leadership there. Well, I think it's very, very good. Now, I think Oriental Land Company with their new CEO that has recently been switched out right there, and some of the post-COVID measures I haven't been all that thrilled with, but they're excellent. Maintaining of maintenance, for example, hasn't faltered. Some of their valuations have kind of shifted, and less shows now than it used to be. A little bit disappointing right there, but maintenance still top tier, and cast member guest services, guest experience has been top tier as well. So anything we can learn from the Oriental Land Company, I think, is a good thing. But remember, Oriental Land Company, all they do is theme parks.
Yep.
And maybe some land stuff as well, but mainly theme parks, right? And so with a company like that that's so dedicated to just that one industry, you can imagine what that would look like versus a behemoth that is Disney, in which the parks have to support other things. So that's one of the reasons why we've seen so much degradation at the parks. It's not that they're not popular. It's not that they don't bring in lots of money. They do. They just got to bring in more money in order to, get these albatrosses off their back. That being streaming, the entertainment division, all of that.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And like being laser focused on something. Obviously, like you look at Michael Jordan and these great athletes. Like they were laser focused on one thing. And
Right.
I think at Disney, that's been an argument too, is like shedding off some of these things that are weighing them down to be able to focus more on the things that are actually making money, like the parks and other things like that. But we're going to get out of here pretty quick. We're at the 2 hour mark, so we're going to get out of here pretty quick here. James All Day TV says, Captain Magic, do you guys think Joe Shoot was a good pick? And do you think he'll fix WDW? I mean, from what we've been talking about, I feel pretty good about it. I mean, obviously time will tell on the things he's going to do, but I think for me, looking at DeMauro coming in, I was pretty and still am somewhat bullish on him. I feel like he is potentially going to do some good things if you believe everything he's saying. And we'll find out within a couple of years of really his impact on these things. But if that is to be believed, and he is sort of changing some things, I mean, shortly after or right before he was named, you got the changes to Galaxy's Edge. You got, so he's mentioned some things about Muppets. Like, it seems like there could be a change. I'll even say from their earnings call, using microphones, sounding more professional, and even willing to say the word Epic Universe in your earnings call, just to be transparent. Like, yeah, it had an impact. Like, I don't think anybody ever believed Bob Iger when he was just going on and on asking about, they'd ask him about it. He's like, oh, we're not worried at all. It's going to be great for it. Like, it's just, no one ever bought that on its face. And maybe that's a generational thing of Iger's a boomer and he's more or less like, you can't show any weakness. And maybe DeMar's a little bit more like, I think that might be his strong suit, is optics, is relating to people. And it's one thing, it's like, if you're friends with somebody that can never admit they're wrong, I've worked with people like that. They're very frustrating human beings to be around. And same thing as a company. As a company can, hey, we made some mistakes. We did this. We're going to try and make it right. I don't think there's a downside to that. I think that if anything, it gets your fan base at least feeling a little bit more like you're hearing what they have to say, and maybe that's starting to go on. But we'll see. I'm pretty optimistic about it in general. But again, like I've said many times, Disney is a giant behemoth that if you're going to really turn something, it's going to take time, effort, and energy to do that. You're not going to see it immediately or anything like that.
I've been very critical of Josh D'Amaro over the years that he's led the Experiences division. One thing going for him is that he is willing to say, hey, we might not always get it right. And he has been willing to shift when appropriate. Maybe we'd like them to shift a little bit more in some directions, but like Harmonious, for example, he came out and said, you know what, we got to really do something with that. Let's go ahead and do Luminous instead. And I think that was a change for the better, and especially for Epcot and Sightlines and all of that stuff, right? Very, very good. Thomas Moslem, when he gave that symposium, that media symposium, I was very candid about the stuff that was actually going on at Disneyland. I was like, okay, this guy he's shooting for the stars here, and I liked a lot of the things that he had to say. Now, some of the implementation of some of the things, like Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin losing its spinning, not great. But overall, I think his mindset was in the right place right there. So to see him elevated to the experience as chairman, was pretty good. When rating Joe Scott, you got to think, were the places that he was at better or worse than when he left them, or when he originally joined them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think in all cases, they were better. I mean, look at Walt Disney Studios Paris. I think with those additions right there, I think he did leave that park in a better place than where it started out, which was about nothing. Shanghai, was it better than where it started when he started? I think it is. Zootopia was, a monumental expansion for that park right there. So getting that in and getting it installed, and also too laying the groundwork for the new Spider-Man coaster, I think all good things. So I am very optimistic about Joe Scott being the head here. Again, Jeff Valley, that's a low bar to clear.
Yeah.
If he can pull some magic out with cooperation with Thomas Muslim and Josh D'Amaro, I think we're in a very good place. And you have three guys that understand the value of this flagship property right here, which I don't think was always the case with the Bob Iger admin. So that whole thing changing, I think it's going to be good.
Well, and like, this is what competition can do. I mean, when you start feeling the effects of that a little bit, and it's just like, okay, we got to make some changes here, because coasting on, I felt, I think Bob Iger he bought some things, and something made sense. I think what he did with those after they bought him, up for debate in many ways, in my opinion, not the best. But I think a lot of Iger was him coasting off of what Eisner did before him. Is the groundwork that he laid, and the aggressiveness of Eisner really did set up these parks. And then maybe toward the end of Iger's tenure, you start seeing this, we were coasting on this, and now that's starting to fade off, and you got to reignite this a little bit. Maybe we're seeing it. I mean, time will tell. Cliff Flick says, you want Burbank to be humble and based. That's a big ask. Get some bros in Burbank just broing out about what they can do with theme parks. I mean,
I don't think they're ever going to be based, but can they be at least humble? So that's the thing, Jared. We I know at that Park Place and Pro, and we criticize this a lot. The arrogance of the company was really on display in a lot of things that they did.
Yep.
I'm not getting that aura anymore. Now, I mean, maybe with this Josh D'Amaro, category of one talk, maybe that's a little bit different, right?
No.
But the ability to say, hey, we messed up. We're going to do something different. It's a big deal. You would have never seen that in Bob Iger's era. Here you might.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I don't think you're going to see, they're starting off meetings in Burbank slamming protein shakes or anything. But who knows? Maybe they're doing that. who knows what they're doing out there?
No.
It's like, you guys got your protein. Let's do this, guys. But yeah, I'm sure that like honesty and humbleness go a long ways. I completely agree, especially when we talk about theme parks and experiences and stuff like that. Especially a brand like Disney that is very personal to a lot of people. And I think that was something we've done our podcast for like 9 years. And a lot of people that have listened to that show for a long time been going to Disney longer than I've been alive. And you'd hear them talk about, I felt like that it wasn't valued anymore. And that relationship was tarnished because it's very personal to them. And I think that is different than, say, Universal at this stage. That could change for them. But I think when you have that type of brand and how people view it, that type of attitude is important, to have that humbleness and to admit, everybody knows you're not going to get everything right. Nobody has 100% hit record. And when you do mess something up, it's like, hey, we messed it up. We're going to do better. And then giving the actual effort to do so and listening to the fan base, I think are very important things that hopefully are in the midst of sort of changing. I will agree completely.
I think so. And Thomas Muslim, during that media symposium, and I believe on this recent podcast that he was on, he talked about how he poured over those surveys that they would give out guests, just really poured over them, really worked them, and really went to his team and said, what are we doing about this? What are we doing about this? What are we doing about this? It's just that emphasis on the guest experience.
Yeah.
It's just not something we always saw from years past. And so I'm hoping that this new admin, that these people in charge have really kind of been feedback oriented and can kind of understand like what our issues are and why people feel so, discontent, right, with the company, with the organization, with all of this stuff, having this feeling of, like Cliff said, like stabbed in the back, like that's no good. Obviously, you don't want to keep on pace with that. So this change of direction, I'm hopeful that they'll be able to achieve it. We'll see. Some of these things, I have my doubts on, but at this critical time right now, they need to. So.
Yeah, I agree. My favorite story that I've heard about somebody giving actual feedback was Drunk 3PO. Jay was talking about he rode Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway with Josh Tomorrow. He didn't know who he was. And he was just ripping into Galaxy's Edge. Like, that thing's terrible. Like, he was asking, he was like, I had no clue who this guy was. And I'm like, you know what? That's good, though. He needs that type of feedback. And it probably, one would wonder, well, how much he'd known about the things that need to change in Galaxy's Edge sort of thing. But that's my favorite story of just unloading about Galaxy's Edge to Josh Tomorrow and having no clue who he is. I'm like, that's pretty funny. I love that.
Jay.
Jay's good people.
I remember interviewing him on that the first time. I'm like, what? Crazy stuff.
I mean, it's a typical Jay story pretty much there. But we got, what's up, Candid Camper? He said, it's the fact that the fans tell them they are wrong before ground breaks. Well, very valid point there.
Yeah.
And he said, we had to be okay with the change to Tiana. Then once we were okay with it, then we had to be okay with them changing the story. Yeah. I mean, again, the posture of the company, I think in many ways was, this is what you want. Not what do you want. We're going to tell you what you want. And I think you can say the same thing for Hollywood and entertainment. Like, it's not only with Disney and theme parks. It's kind of synonymous. So if they are breaking away from that would be bucking the trend. But we are starting to see a little bit of that more in Hollywood, even about needing to actually listen to the audience and what they want. And, maybe we're seeing that. And before we go, we got one more here from Cliff Flicks. He says, the first step is fixing a problem, or to fixing a problem is to admit you have a problem. If you don't, you can't fix it. Very good point. Very valid point.
Look, Thomas Moslem, during that media symposium, he admitted to a lot of problems that they were having, which I was shocked by. I was like, whoa. He was pretty candid. What, Bob Iger? I'm like, what? Like, this is crazy. How, this guy was so candid in detailing out, like, hey, we missed this, we missed that, we missed this, we have this data, we have that data. I was like, whoa, so hopefully they're looking into those problems, acknowledging them internally, and trying to fix them.
Yep, I agree. Well, I think that's going to do it for the stream. We're at the 2-hour mark here, and try not to keep these too long here because I don't want to be up till midnight or 1 a.m. if I don't have to be here. But for some people are asking in the chat, OG had to dip out. He had double booked himself. His agent had got him too busy, so he had to dip out early.
That's
but
true.
Go check out Orange Grove 55. Of course, he's family in these parts. He's got some good stuff over there. Before we get out of here, Vash, thank you as always for being here. And Vash is now part of the theme park and crew. He's part of the action theme park team. So maybe I'll see if I can get the AI to get more Anchorman type of situations for us. Who knows what it'll be. I did have a 1980s action movie poster that actually looked kind of cool, but it did show some certain things that police officers carry that I thought YouTube probably wouldn't like.
Yeah, that's a problem.
If anything, you looked cool. You were the one holding it. I'm like, oh man, that looks really cool, but I couldn't use it. But it would be great on a poster nonetheless. But Vash, thank you for being here as always. And be sure to go check out Vash on his channel. He just had a 5K celebration over there on Vash Sky ParkCast. But where can they go find you? And what do you got coming up here soon that they can go check out?
Yep, best place to follow me is going to be on X over there at Vash Sky. It basically has all my links to the various social medias, and it's where you can follow, like, where I'm interacting with people and all of that. Definitely check that out. But yeah, Vash Sky ParkCast. I mean, look, when I started out this career in YouTube, I was like, man, it'd be really cool if like 10 people saw what I had to say. It'd be really awesome if I got like 15 people. I mean, that would be just over the moon right there. OG was kind enough to say, hey, settle up, let's go, partner. And that just started this whole thing. And never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be running a channel with 5,000 people watching. That's, I mean, just outrageous, just so incredible. I mean, really, you guys have made that dream come true. So I want to go ahead and thank you. I want to thank Jared, who was a big part of that, in order to get that started, to get that ball rolling right there. So thank you so much for that. Also, thank you for coming on today's excellent show right there. That was a lot of fun stuff. Definitely check out Vash Sky ParkCast tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern. We're going to be talking about a little bit more of Joe Scott right there, because, you know, it's a big deal. It's a big deal when a new park president is brought in. So we'll be expanding that discussion. Also, too, a Disney facial recognition lawsuit for $5 million. Ooh, that just dropped in the federal court of New York, which I thought was kind of very interesting right there. We also have, shocked as you were, we've got some updates on Smuggler's Run, which I think was very interesting. Did they go too far with Grogu? They may have. Also, too, Fast and Furious now testing with people. Oh yeah, we got all those stories and much more for you right over there. So tomorrow, 6:30 Eastern, we're gonna go ahead and have that out over there in Vash Sky ParkCast. And definitely, if we have, I think, like 70 new members today,
you got a lot, right there, which is absolutely
incredible. If you want to go ahead and join us with your new membership, you being a Sky Watcher out there, join us on Vash and Vixen on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. I think that's a really, really cool show. But Jared, thank you so much for having me on. And, you know, I really do enjoy doing these programs with you, OG, and whoever else we have on. So I can't wait to be part of the team going forward.
Absolutely. It's good. And Vash knows his stuff. He is very, I on the live stream, I saw all those tabs. I'm like, how do you know? Like, I've said this on your live stream. I feel like if I were just like, hey, do you have that information about some obscure thing? There would be a tab there. And I appreciate that, because I am not that in-depth, but I appreciate it when it's there for sure. But also, thank you right in the chat. And be sure, again, go check out Vash Sky. And you're right, though, when you restart, you're just like, man, if 10 people watch, it'd be great. And then you get to a point, like sometimes you have to catch yourself, because, you know, you put out a video, didn't do as well, and you're like, 1,000 people watch. If I was speaking in front of 1,000 people in a room, I'd be like, holy crap. It's like, you know, you can get really kind of used to it, but it's a wild world. And I'm the same way. I never, you know, we started doing a podcast and stuff, but I can't ever imagine I saw myself doing live streams or anything like that. But it is legitimately a good time, especially like you and OG. It's fun to do it with people that enjoy this stuff. I like to have a good time, and I like to, you know, bring a little fun into it, you know, have a little fun with this stuff and talk about these things. Always a good time. But thank you, everybody in the chat. You guys were awesome tonight. Hanging out here, being very active. And in the super chatters, we had Cliff Flicks with a ton of super chats, very, very generous. We had Philip with a couple as well. Greatly appreciate you guys. And we'll be back next week for another theme park. And if you're on Vash's channel, you can catch me at Cap the Magic. That's where I'm at. If you want to do daily videos over there. And if you want some Disney World, Universal Studios Orlando actual tips and stuff for the theme parks, you can check out CTM Podcast with my wife and I. And we go in depth on a lot of this stuff. We broke down all the what we thought about Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin and Big Thunder Mountain. And I will say, after you pointed out the sand on Big Thunder, it's all I could see. Like when I was riding,
that's all you can see, right? Oh, it's like, it's so distracting.
It literally is everywhere on that ride. I was telling my wife, I'm like, and she didn't notice it at first either. And then she was like, "You're right." And I'm like, I'm very curious as to why they did all that stuff. But it's an interesting thing. But also, I think on this weekend, I'm going to have a Theme Park Wizard. Got a bunch of stuff going on with Universal. So if you want some more live streams, check that out at a time. We're going to figure out a time to do that. So we'll do that sometime this weekend. But thank you guys for being here. Have a great evening, a great rest of your week. And we'll see you guys next week for another edition of Theme Park. And see you guys. Have a good night.